Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, joined virtually, of course, by Dave Minuk. Ezra Ginsburg is there as well. We're all about the Winnipeg Jets as we are each and every Saturday morning. It's a game day. It's a game day that's starting about 3 hours earlier than we initially anticipated, but that's okay. That just means we can spend some more quality time with our family, by which I mean each other, later on this evening. Gentlemen, good to see you both on this Saturday morning. The Jets and the Oilers later on tonight. Jets coming off a very successful road trip. But the big news of the day, of course, the signing yesterday of Adam Lowry to a contract extension, a 5-year contract extension worth a total of $16.25 million. Good to see you both on this Saturday morning.
Yeah, what's up, boys? I'm glad you got that 0.25 in there. Lousy wouldn't have liked that if you didn't get that 0.25. I'm obviously bugging you. But, yeah, you know,
also,
surprising guys.
Since when can you call him lousy?
That's his nickname. It's his nickname.
No, it's not. That's not the nickname that you have for him. You can call him Mr. Lowry.
No, it's also his Twitter handle too.
I wouldn't go that formal either, Drew.
Maybe Andrew or not Andrew, Adam. Sorry, I'm pretty sure that if Ezzy starts an interview, hey, lousy, then there's going to be an issue.
Yeah, possibly. I can call him Andrew too as well. Yeah, exactly. It would be a lousy interview date, Drew. But obviously, it was a surprise, guys, that Lowry signed this contract. Considering that the Jets typically do their business after the season is over, or I guess if you want to look at it like before the next season starts, right? So that was, I think, the big surprise. Elliot Friedman obviously was reporting, earlier in the day on Friday that, a contract was close. So it wasn't a surprise that, the contract was finalized later in the day. But, as I mentioned, it's just a little bit uncommon for the Jets to, sign one of their players to a long-term contract. So, I mean, it's great news, right? And, several weeks back, we were talking about the Seattle expansion draft, and, Drew asked the question, who would you take, Lowry or Kopp? And, before any of us gave our answers, we said that we were hopeful that, both of these players would re-sign. And now, obviously, one of them is signed. And I think there's every reason to believe Andrew Kopp is going to sign as well, guys. But obviously, there are ramifications for the Seattle expansion draft, because if Lowry was a UFA, then, he didn't need to be protected. But all around, I mean, this is just a great contract for a guy who spent his entire career with the Jets. And that's what I love, Dave, about what he talked about. I mean, he said that repeatedly, in the Zoom call, and then also, with our friends Kenny and Rennie on their show. Like he repeated that he wanted to stay in Winnipeg. And he didn't necessarily want to test the UFA market. So I think Jets fans love to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think that to me was the overarching kind of message within the framework of yesterday's media availability with Adam Lowry, was just this idea of his love for Winnipeg and how much he enjoys playing for this organization. And it was interesting because I was thinking about it. He was drafted, obviously, 2011 in the third round. And I was thinking, I can't believe it's already been 10 years since he was drafted, or almost 10 years since he was drafted. You were at that draft, Ezzy, you remember it. But to me, it's a function of, you get guys who want to be here long-term, want to be part of the community. And it's interesting, and just deviating slightly from Adam Lowry, when Connor Hellebuyck was talking a week back or so, and he was talking about the absence of fans, and he talked about our community. And I was thinking, like, it's been now a long time, and these guys are now becoming part of the framework of the community. And that's one of the things you don't necessarily see so much in today's NHL that we used to see back in the day was, Jets 1.0, is that guys were part of the community. They bought homes here. They lived here year round. Dale Howardchuk, you had other guys, lots of guys, who did that. And it was different. Obviously the money was different. They couldn't necessarily maybe afford to have homes in so many different places like today's player. But the reality is, I think a lot of guys are now adopting that mentality of, this is their home, this is their community. Like I said, we heard it from Connor Hellebuyck. And that was kind of, like I said, one of the comments he made. And Adam Lowry is probably, along with Josh Morrissey, one of the most well-spoken members of the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they're probably the top two. Andrew Kopp's very good as well. But those are probably the top two guys, I think, in terms of their ability to have, a coherent thought and express themselves well. And I just like, and Lowry to me was, like I said, he was clear in what his message was. His message was, I want to be here. I want to be part of this organization. I want to win with this organization. I have confidence in what they do. But also, like I said, it was more about, like, how many times do you ever hear a guy say, I want to play here with one team for the rest of my career? He was honest. And I like even his comment, which, it's funny because I tweeted it and it's gotten a lot of reaction, is he told his agent, I want to be in Winnipeg. And, again, he didn't publicly state it, which obviously would have put him up against the barrel if he was negotiating. He didn't go public with that stance. But the idea that, and he said it in his availability. How often do the Jets ever do midseason extensions? That's usually, and Drew, you referenced it, I want to say like 6 months ago, but like whenever it was, you said, who is Chevy going to announce as his training camp extension? Because that's usually what we get on day one of training camp, is he mentioned one player who's been extended. So again, I think it was a win. I thought the dollar value was a win. It's less than what Brandon Tanev signed for in Pittsburgh. He signed for 6 years, $3.5 million AAV, I think. And so I think from a Jets perspective, it was a really good contract with a player who wants to be in Winnipeg, gives you that third line center, doesn't break the bank. And again, like I said, he was asked by Sean and Ken that idea about leaving money on the table. And I don't think anybody would disagree that he left money on the table, because, a team like Calgary would have, lined up to sign him. I think Seattle would have been happy to sign him. I think there would have been a lot of bidders for Adam Lowry, but I thought his comment to Sean was interesting. His comment was, when Sean asked him, are you going to lament not testing the UFA market? And he said, no. He goes, he said he thought about it. He goes, I have no regrets about signing this deal with Winnipeg.
Well, Adam Lowry's value, it goes, and I think it was either Murat or it was our buddy Ken Weeb, but not that Murat's not our buddy, but he's also our buddy, in one of their columns about the signing, sort of said that his value certainly goes beyond what you would see on the score sheet. And certainly true. Paul Maurice has got to be probably the if he's not the second happiest guy, then he might be even happier than Adam Lowry is, because this just gives Paul Maurice certainly a sense of comfort and that reliable guy that, he always goes over the boards, usually second to start every game if he doesn't start the game to begin with, because Paul Maurice trusts Adam Lowry so much. Now, Adam Lowry, is having a good year, and he's having a better year this year than he did last year. And so I think the timing happened to be very fortuitous for him, in that he's already got 8 goals. If this was a full season, an 82 game season, this would be a guy who would probably be, 15 to 20 goals this season. And he's never going to light up the score sheet. He's never going to be I don't think he's going to be even a 40-point guy in his career. But if Adam Lowry can chip in 12 goals and he can chip in, 15, 16 assists and right around that 30, 35 point mark, while continuing to play the difficult matchups he plays night in and night out, I think the Jets are going to be very happy with this contract. That's just, you're almost paying for the reliability that Adam Lowry brings to the team, brings to the bench, and brings to that dressing room, in that, his effort is basically going to be pretty similar night in and night out.
I think one of the most important things about getting Lowry under contract for 5 years is that what your team is going to look like up the middle, right? Like, we know Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, we know they're under contract for next year. And in terms of Scheifele, obviously past next year, and then Dubois will have to be re-signed. But then, Paul Stastny is going to be a free agent. And, we expect David Gustafsson, there's a really good chance, right, guys, that he's going to be the fourth line center next year. It's not guaranteed, but just based on, his development, he's been playing with the Moose. And I think, we would all agree that he's ready to graduate to the NHL. So I think that's one of the most important things by locking up Adam Lowry. You're not going to have to go into the off season with that unknown, right? Like, who's going to be, your third line center, or who's going to be the other center, along with Scheifele, Dubois, and Gustafsson. Jansen Harkins, of course, can play center, but I think, at this point, we would all agree that, it looks like he's going to stay on the wing of this Jets team. So that's what I think is the most important. And kind of going back to what you guys were talking about. Yeah, like, maybe he left some money on the table, but like, who cares? Like, he signed the contract. So as far as I'm concerned, like, what does it even matter? Like, I understand, like, maybe he could have got a little bit more money, but I mean, who are we to say how much money that would have been? Like, are we talking about $500,000 more a year? I don't know, maybe, but I mean, I'm just speaking, personally. I don't really care. I mean, I think you could make the argument that when any player signs with any team, I'm talking about a pending UFA. When a player signs, with his team, it's possible that he's leaving a little bit more money on the table. And let's be honest, UFAs are oftentimes overpaid, right? So, I agree that he probably left money on the table, but I think you need to focus on what's most important here. As Dave said, it's a lifelong Jet drafted by the Jets. His dad's the assistant coach. I mean, this is a great story. This is, something that, I think most Jets fans, 99.9% of Jets fans are happy about.
Well, and to your point, it's hard to know if he left money on the table or not. Now, usually, free agency by definition, unrestricted free agency tends to be inflationary. So, but, we're in a bit of a brave new world when it comes to free agency, given the flat cap in the NHL, given, the lack of pandemic revenue for these teams. Who knows, what the market was going to bear out for Adam Lowry this offseason. So instead, what does he get? He takes the bird in the hand, which is a very fair bird to him at 3.25 per season for the for the foreseeable future, for the next 5 years, which is certainly a significant chunk of the rest of his career. So I mean, I just at some point in time, it's not, what you passed up on, but it's what you took instead. And, to your point, Ezzy, you're talking about the Jets up the middle next season. Well, I tweeted this yesterday after the signing was announced. The Jets' 4 centermen, the top 3 of which are pretty damn good, high-skilled centermen, and David Gustafsson seems like he's got all the talent in the world. You're paying a total of little over $15 million for your 4 centermen. Mm-hmm. That's a tidy piece of business by Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff.
Well, it's a good point. Yeah. And we know that Scheifele's underpaid. He's in the Nathan McKinnon criminally underpaid group, right? And Dubois is going to get a raise on his next contract, but you could make a strong argument that he's underpaid as well. But that was a contract that he signed. It was a bridge deal, right, guys? So, I mean, you always know you're giving up a little bit when you're signing a bridge deal. It's kind of funny because, Dubois and Laine both signed those bridge deals and then they were traded for each other. I mean, there's a lot of connections there, second round, second overall pick, third overall pick. But you're right, Drew. I mean, they have incredible depth and they're not paying a lot for it. That's the main point here for Jets fans. Like, you have Dubois on his contract still at, what is it, $5 million a year. $5 million, and you've got Scheifele locked up 3 more years after this year, right?
Yeah, it's everything about this is logical, I think, from both sides. And maybe you don't love paying $3.25 million for the offense that Adam Lowry brings, which isn't a ton, but you are glad to pay $3.25 a year for everything else he brings combined with his offense. And I know you're not supposed to pay for intangibles anymore, and you're not supposed to pay for leadership, and you're not supposed to pay for sort of that off-ice dressing room influence, but it matters. And I think that Adam Lowry certainly is in the leadership group of this team, especially now, if he wasn't already, and I think he already was, but especially now that he's here for the next 5 seasons with the Winnipeg Jets. And everything about this, I think, from a Jets perspective, just makes a lot of sense. It makes sense from Lowry's perspective, probably makes sense from his family perspective. And, you take a bird in the hand, especially in these uncertain times, and you're happy about it, and you can really continue to put down roots here in Winnipeg. And Dave, you talked about it when, off the top there, sort of saying about, how, his comments and about how he's, a member of the community. And it always harkens back, and that's not a Jansen pun, but it always harkens back to me to a comment an old boss made for me, that Winnipeg is the hardest place to get people to come to. But then once they're here, it's the hardest place to get people to leave. And you are to some extent seeing that with the Winnipeg Jets, with certain signings, Scheifele, Wheeler, Morrissey, Hellebuck. I mean, I know that there's
Kyle Connor,
sure, Nikolai Ehlers. And I know that there's, people who've chosen not to be here, But, Evander Kane, I mean, ultimately his career has been a disappointment. Now, I'm not saying that it would have been any different had he stayed in Winnipeg, but he never gave it a chance. You could tell psychologically from day one, Evander Kane never had any interest in being here long term. And that's his prerogative. I'm not criticizing him for that whatsoever. But this is on the flip side, you have the guys who've come here, been open-minded, and have absolutely thrived here as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. And now Adam Lowry can be added to that list of guys. And that's why it's important for Lowry himself. It's important for the team. It's important, again, for the narrative that exists and will continue to exist, because the people who use this narrative tend to be from outside of Winnipeg and ignorant on the facts that nobody wants to stay to Winnipeg. People might not want to be traded to Winnipeg, but once they come, and once they spend some time, they do tend to want to stay. So, and another comment I wanted to make is that this salary, the $3.25 million, I think does not preclude the Jets from going out and maintaining one of their current pending free agents, be it Paul Stastny, be it Matthew Perreault. I mean, the numbers, the salary here doesn't close shop for Kevin Cheveldayoff with regard to his pending UFAs. We know that the RFA business will get done. Mm-hmm. Certainly Neil Pionk, and then obviously Andrew Kopp is a to be determined. But the salary that you've now allocated to Adam Lowry keeps a lot of doors open for the Jets general manager.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's, again, that's what Adam Lowry talked about, that idea of contention. And Ken Weave of Sportsnet wrote about that idea that this kind of keeps that Jets window open for some time, because you've got, your third line center established and set. And to your point, Drew, what you said, mm-hmm. that idea of your centers aren't costing you a fortune. And maybe that affords you the opportunity to bring in a defenseman next year who's going to help solidify your group. We'll see. Or if you allow for internal, development to continue, the guys like Ville Heinola, Johnny Kovacevic, who could be on the right side. You don't know what's going to happen. Again, like I said, Logan Stanley's taking the jump, so we don't know what kind of development curve guys will be on and their path forward. But I think, to your point, Drew, it gives you an opportunity to be competitive with other teams, and you can have a little bit of money to play. And you're right, you're going to have to pay Neil Pionk a pretty big upgrade, and Andrew Kopp is, he's got Kurt Overcharge as his agent, so I suspect he's not going to come in at a lower price. So I think that's one of those things you have to factor in. But what this does is it gives you that opportunity to get these guys down, and then, like I said, if you need to make that ad, you make the ad if there's that opportunity. But it also means you can always hold on to that money, allow the young guys to come in. They've had another year of development, even though it's been an unusual year. They've at least developed. And then from there, you say, okay, well, we could always add at the deadline. We'll have that latitude. We'll have that space. And that's always the thing that a GM wants to have, right? The flexibility to be able to make decisions that can improve their hockey club.
Exactly right, Dave. Let's talk about the expansion draft ramifications, Ezzy. But first, I want to say good morning to everybody joining us this Saturday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube. We're live on our social media platform. Nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces joining us in the chat. Come on down. Join the Jets conversation that happens each and every time we go live, be it with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show or the Illegal Curve post-game show. While you're here, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up. That's all we ask of you. Keep the conversation clean in the chat. Give us some thumbs up. That's your job. We'll provide the hockey content. Ezzy, let's talk about the expansion draft ramifications. We know that Lowry, of course, was a pending UFA, and my thought was going to be that maybe that the Jets would get something done with him, but I always thought it was going to happen after the expansion draft. We now know that that's not going to be the case, so the Jets' 7 forwards that they're going to protect seem pretty clear. Wheeler, Connor, Ehlers, Scheifele, Dubois, Kopp, and Lowry. Those 7 seem like there's no brainer. What does this mean then for Mason Appleton or Jansen Harkins, the 2 forwards that are most likely, one of those 2 forwards likely to be chosen by the Seattle Kraken, barring some sort of side deal that we've seen the Jets pull like they did with the Vegas Golden Knights a number of years ago?
Well, you just kind of answered it there, Drew. I mean, that would be the only way, that unless Seattle wants to take a defenseman, that is how you avoid Seattle taking Appleton or Jansen Harkins is making a side deal, because I think if you look at Appleton's trajectory and the amount of money that he's making, he would probably be the first choice of Seattle, and Jansen Harkins would probably be the second choice. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Lowry signing just means another spot is locked in, right? And if Lowry wasn't locked in, then if he wasn't signed, then he wouldn't be a locked in forward, and then there always would be the chance that Lowry isn't protected because you're going to sign him at a later date. So, you said it. I mean, that's what's going to happen. If there is a deal to be made, it'll be to prevent Seattle from taking. I don't know if prevent is the right word, or it would just be to ensure, I guess, that Appleton isn't taken. I'm not sure if you can do that with Harkins as well, because I'm sure the Jets wouldn't want to lose Harkins either. He's making less than $1 million a year, but. This is huge for the expansion draft. And, we know most likely who the Jets are going to protect on defense, but there always is the chance, guys, that the Jets decide to protect Logan Stanley over Dylan DeMello. And I wouldn't be so sure, guys, that, Seattle doesn't take one of those defensemen.
Yeah, and people are asking in the chat about Harkins, and remember, he can be taken by Seattle. It's just a function of whether he qualifies as a forward that you have to expose. So
let me explain that, if you don't mind, Dave. So what the rule is that for the Seattle expansion draft, each team needs to expose 2 forwards who have played either 27 games this season or 54 games combined over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And has to be under contract for next year.
Right.
So Mason Appleton qualifies as one of those people, no questions asked. He's played the sufficient number of games. Harkins needs to play 5 more games this season to be the second Jets forward to qualify for that. If he doesn't play those 5 more games, and I do think he will, but time will tell. If he doesn't, that means the Jets will have to go out and re-sign at least to a 1-year deal.
Nate Thompson or Trevor Lewis.
Thompson, Trevor Lewis, Matthew Perreault, one of those pending UFAs, or even somebody else completely off the board that's an unrestricted free agent, but that's less likely to occur. Yeah. So that is the sort of the caveat with Jansen Harkins and with the Jets forward group. And Cheveldayoff obviously knows that, and so that's why I expect you'll see Harkins get those 5 games between now and the end of the regular season. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, that's kind of what I was saying. But yeah, you've clarified it further, which is good for people, because there is always that uncertainty. And sometimes people will be like, oh, well, this person can't be picked because, they're not here, but no, they actually could be. And it's just a function of whether Winnipeg has sufficiently, qualified enough players to allow them to hit what they need to, their requirements. So,
and they've satisfied the defense and the goaltending. When they signed Nathan Beaulieu in the offseason to a 2-year contract, that's right. The reason for adding that second year was largely to get him to qualify as the defenseman to be exposed in the expansion draft, to meet the qualifications. For goaltenders, there's not a games played rule. For goaltenders, it's only that they have to be under contract.
Yeah. So that's why Comrie's available.
Comrie, Burden, and Cole Keller, because they're all under contract for years to come. And Hellebuyck obviously will be protected by the Jets.
Yeah, clearly. Anyways, no, and I was just going to say, look, what did the Jets do with Vegas? So they wouldn't remember. The Jets had to leave Tobias Enstrom exposed, and they didn't obviously want to lose him. So what did they trade? They swapped their first round pick, which was the 13th overall, for Vegas's, which I think was 24th overall, and they also gave Vegas a 3rd round pick.
Right.
So to me, if you're the Jets, why wouldn't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you do something similar to ensure that you can direct Vegas to take player X, whoever that is?
You basically, and I was going to say, you find out who, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. You find out who Seattle is going to take. So let's just, for sake of argument, say it's Dylan DeMello, Dave. Yeah. Right? Like, it could be a Dylan DeMello, a draft pick swap, so they won't take Dylan DeMello. Or if it turns out to be, I don't know, Matty Perreault or Jansen Harkins. Drew mentioned, I forgot that it's not a guarantee Harkins will be protected, or will need to be protected, I should say. But yeah, that's, I think, what, Jets fans should expect to happen. Something like that, either, a swap of draft picks, or the Jets just send Seattle a draft pick.
Yeah. And that would be my guess as well. And that's what I think that they're going to, I think that's what Kevin Cheveldayoff, to Drew's point. I mean, if you're locking yourself in to essentially saying these are the forwards that we're going to have to protect, And everybody knew who they were. The only question was if Lowry was still going to be a UFA, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, then at least it afforded you the opportunity to protect a Mason Appleton, or a Logan, not like a Mason Appleton. Sorry.
Yeah.
So to me, that was kind of the way it looked like it was going with the Winnipeg Jets. Clearly, they went another way, and part of me thinks, because Kevin Cheveldayoff has a tendency to be a little risk averse, part of me thinks that maybe he's already got something worked out with Seattle. There's no guarantees, but I just wonder if he did something like this in the middle of the season, whatever point of the season, I guess the mid-quarter mark. So I think if that's the case, then I think it's a function of, does he already have something drawn up with Seattle to say, this is the way it's going to look for you guys. This is what we're going to give you. And because it seems like a move that he would make to have comfort to do the Lowry signing if he knew with certainty this is the way it's going to look for Seattle.
To your point, he knows what it's going to cost the Jets to not lose a roster player at the expansion draft. And if it is the same price, like you said, like the Jets paid to Vegas, I think most people are probably okay with that, because it's unlikely.
I was just going to say, you can fire the third round pick that Columbus gave you in the Line A deal in 2022 if you need to. You can use that, so you don't actually lose one of your own draft picks. I'm saying
sure. You could have an extra third round pick.
You have an extra third round pick, so you can have something to play with a little bit.
And now that Lowry signed, guys, I was just going to say, Drew, we know that means that either Appleton or Harkins has to be exposed, right? Like you mentioned it, Appleton must be exposed, unless of course they don't protect Andrew Kopp, but we expect that to happen, right? So I really think it's going to be interesting to see if it's Logan Stanley or Dylan DeMello, because if you protect Logan Stanley, but you have a deal worked out with Seattle so they don't take Dylan DeMello, right? Then you don't mind doing that, but you definitely don't want to lose Logan Stanley. So, I mean, I guess you could say the reverse happens, and I guess it doesn't matter at that point, as long as Seattle doesn't take the player that you don't want them to take, right?
Well, if you have a side deal worked out, then they're going to take, like Vegas did, Chris Thorburn, the equivalent, the 2021 equivalent of that player, a guy who's a pending unrestricted free agent. I mean, that's why you make the side deal. Now, I think what general managers have probably learned is that they're not going to make a side deal that involves them trading a different roster player, because that's where Vegas was able to capitalize so well. They were able to take these sort of diamonds in the rough.
Alex
Tuck, Jonathan Marsh. So, I mean, you go up and down the Vegas lineup of guys who've contributed. Now, I think general managers have learned that, but in terms of Kevin Cheveldayoff, if it costs the Jets a third round pick, and that means they get to hold on to both DeMello, and means they get to hold on to Stanley and Harkins and Appleton, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a price that the Winnipeg Jets are probably willing to pay, Dave.
Yeah, no, and there's no question in my mind, again, because you want to keep your core together. You don't want to lose pieces that are up and coming. We've seen Mason Appleton's game hit another level this season with the opportunity he's been afforded. And I think that, you've got Logan Stanley, who's taken a big jump. And again, I wouldn't have anticipated what he's been able to do. I thought he was always going to be a decent NHLer. That was my kind of projection for him when people would ask. But I think he's taken this opportunity. He's jumped his game, another level. And again, he's shown that he could be something. And big guys, when we had Craig Button on, what did he say? He said a guy like that has to develop at a different pace than everybody else. And I'm not saying he's going to be Zdeno Chara, obviously, but that idea of these guys who don't necessarily look like they've got it all together early on, because there's so many different aspects of their game that have to develop differently than your traditional player. And again, I think the Jets are using that word, risk averse. I think it's a situation where you don't want to, quote, give up, especially on a player that you've had a belief in, right? So many people have crapped on the Jets for the pick, and not necessarily the pick so much, but the idea of moving up for the pick. I think that's what bothers a lot of people. But the idea is the Jets have invested a lot in Logan Stanley and his development, and I don't think they want to give up on that yet, knowing that, again, he could be part of your team for the next decade in a very solid second pairing, most likely third pairing role. Could be as high as second pairing. I'm just saying right now he's third pairing, which is good for him and his development. And I think from a Kevin Cheveldayoff's perspective, you don't want to give up on that. So what do? Again, to me, the way we've watched him operate over the last 10 years, I could be completely wrong. I don't know anything for a fact. I'm just simply conjecture on my part. but I would think that he is going to be have made a deal with Seattle in order to protect the assets he wants to protect and expose someone that he's willing to part with on this Jets roster.
Let's hold it right there. Our buddy Sean Reynolds is going to join us momentarily. Let's pay some bills, play some ads. When we come back, Sean Reynolds joins us for more Jets talk and hit the conversation that he and Ken Wiebe had yesterday with Adam Lowry. You're listening, you're watching. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve Sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We're back with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Joining us on the program now from the arena, because I'll be perfectly honest, I totally forgot that there was a game day skate happening right now. Sean Rennie Reynolds joins us. Sans headband, unfortunately, but I guess you got to look a little bit more professional than you do from the home office there, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah, you know what? I've been fooling people for years with this professionalism thing, and I've given a little look behind the scenes onto how unprofessional I am, but there's still people, I think, somewhere in this rink who maintain the thought that I'm some kind of professional. So I'd like to hold on to those people as long as I can.
That's perfectly reasonable, Sean. I guess first and foremost, what can you tell us that's happening at Winnipeg Jets Game Day skate ahead of tonight's contest against the Oilers?
Well, I mean, the big thing to look out for is Blake Wheeler. He's out on the ice and he's wearing a white jersey, which is the top 6 jerseys that they wear. So, I mean, that's good news. It clearly means that he's progressing from his concussion, which has kept him out of that last road trip. That said, there's 7 white jerseys out there, so one of these things just doesn't belong in the game tonight. And so far, I haven't seen him taking rushes with any of the other top 6 players, so I would suggest we're going to see the game start with the same top 6 lines or the top 2 lines that we saw on the road, or the way things ended in Toronto, and that we're not going to see Blake Wheeler playing the game tonight.
And, how much of that, Sean, do you think factors in that, I guess, 2 things, that the Jets don't have, that they have this 5-day break off after tonight's game, getting Wheeler even that extra time off?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, and I guess, we know that when you've got a concussion and you need to get back to where you need to get, the best thing that you can get is rest, right? So that's always going to be a good thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that the next time we see the Jets on the ice after this, that you're going to see Blake Wheeler playing in the game. because that's concussions, right? They're the big unknown, and we still don't know, or there's still a lot that we need to learn about that, and you got to be careful with it. And hey, he could be feeling good one day and feeling poor the next day. I will say this, from everything that we've seen of him, the progression that he's been making, the steps that he has been taking to return to the ice, there looks to be, on the whole, positive steps. You know, he moves from getting onto the ice fairly quickly, and the fact you see him on the ice the next day means he didn't get off the ice and have poor symptoms. Getting back on the ice the next day, he's progressing, and he's trying, skating a little bit harder every time he gets on the ice, trying new things every time he gets on the ice. So when you're trying to bring someone back from a concussion, you're trying to build them back to that space where you feel free and clear. And just by what we've seen from him, we know that build is happening. Now, again, with concussions, everything can take a sharp turn for the worse at any point. So you got to watch out for that. But you have to like what you're seeing progression-wise from Blake Wheeler as he tries to get back into this lineup.
Sean, we have to ask you about Adam Lowry. Obviously, the huge news yesterday, signs the big 5-year contract. Hold on a second. Just got to get something. Hold on. There we go.
There
we go.
Yes.
He came on the Kenny and Rennie show. I brought that just for you, Sean. A great interview. And you guys obviously, had Elliot Friedman on as well, who, along with Darren Dreger, obviously, broke the news yesterday. And, it was just so refreshing to hear him, right off of, signing that contract, because, he's such a genuine guy. And, we were talking about this before you came on. He said this on your show, and he said this, during the Zoom call as well. Like he obviously wanted to be in Winnipeg long term. And, he said that, many times. I guess, the question I wanted to ask you was, does this contract just make too much sense in terms of, the value, the term, everything like that? Because I think, the big concern was that, a guy like Adam Lowry, he might, have to have that kind of, drawer deal, just to avoid not having to expose him in this Seattle expansion draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game I would not have played if I was the Winnipeg Jets, putting yourself in a position where you could lose Adam Lowry. I mean, I know a lot of people on Twitter were talking, saying, well, why not save this deal so that you can take another player and not have to worry about exposing them. That's crazy to me. It's crazy that you would suggest trying to hold on to Mason Appleton at the risk of losing Adam Lowry. Because here's the thing, it was why it was so important for us to get Elliot Friedman on the show yesterday. Elliot gave both Ken and I a text way earlier in the day, so we knew this was going down early in the day. He knew it was going down. And the most important story I thought I heard from Elliot yesterday on our show was that when he tweeted the news that it looked like it was heading in this direction and it was almost done, he started getting texts from other general managers around the league who were hopefully saying, Elliot, are you sure you don't got this wrong? People were hoping that this wasn't going to happen. There were wolves at the door waiting for Adam Lowry to somewhat be exposed so that they could make those overtures. And again, Elliot said on our show, make no mistake about it, he took a hometown discount here. He left money on the table. I, guys, personally thought that he could be in the range of $4.5 million a year. I don't think he just left money on the table. Anytime you're leaving over $1 million on the table, which is what I think happened here, that is an insane amount of value that your team is getting. So, yeah, okay, you can play that game, and the fact that Adam Lowry wanted to come back here, maybe you can go out and you can say, okay, let's expose him. Let's try and finagle something here so we keep Mason Appleton, which I think he's a great player, but you got another guy like Jensen Harkins just waiting in the wing, and you've got players who can jump into those spots. I personally think, and I said this, I've been on the record as saying this, I think that the Winnipeg Jets window would have closed if they lost Adam Lowry. I think he is that important because when you've got the depth the Jets have, and when you've got Adam Lowry, who is now at the stage of his career where he can shut down the very best lines in hockey. It used to be he could shut down the really tough, big, strong centers. He's at the stage now where he's shutting down the Austin Matthews of the world. When you have the depth that you have, and you can take that guy and erase the best talent in the world that you're playing against, and then free up the rest of your talent to go play against the second, third, sometimes fourth lines of other teams, I don't think that you can put well, you can put a price on that value, but you need that. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, you need that. Your team is built around being able to do that. And I think other teams, and I always go in this direction, imagine what the Edmonton Oilers would look like if they could go and take Adam Lowry as their third-line center and put him out to erase the Mark Scheifele's of the world or the Austin Matthews of the world. And then you were consistently able to get Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid out against third-line talent around the league. That would be invaluable. So this was a risk the Jets just could not take in my mind. I think this was done the right way. And at that value, how could you not do that deal?
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Our guest joining us from the arena where the Jets and the Oilers will do battle later on this evening is Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet.
You know, Sean, I got to stick with the interview you and Ken did with Adam Lowry yesterday. I thought it was fantastic. I'll reiterate Ezzy's point. And, you know, I think, although I was a little jealous, nice microphone upgrade. Very, very fancy new microphone. I definitely noticed Sean's flipped up his microphone game a little bit. But, you know, one of the things I think that, I took away from the interview with you and also that he did with the media with us earlier was that overarching thought of wanting to be part of Winnipeg, that idea of becoming part of the community. And I think, and I guess what I'm wondering is your opinion, but what length do you think that goes to dispelling the myth of folks not wanting to be in the peg, right? And how much that'll help? Because here's a guy who, to your point, could have obviously he gets certainty signing here with an uncertain, market, but we know there would have been a market for a player of his size, his strength, his ability somewhere in the NHL, whether it's with the Seattle, with one of the Western Canadian teams like a Calgary or an Edmonton. I 100% agree with you. He left money on the table, but he just became another in a long line of players now who have signed long-term deals in Winnipeg. And I think, there's this myth, and Drew, I think, said it earlier in the show, that, it's hard to get people here, but it's even harder to get people to leave here once they are here. And I think a guy like that who could have gone and made more money elsewhere, signing here is just another feather in the cap, if you will, of the Jets organization and the city itself.
Yeah. Well, let's dispel this myth right off the bat. There's no way that Adam Lowry or Adam Lowry's agent thinks for a second that he couldn't have gone and got potentially better money or the same term anywhere else. Adam Lowry is here because Adam Lowry wants to be in Winnipeg to the point that he would take less money to stay here and be a Winnipeg Jet for the next 5 years. That's how it goes. And so to your point, Dave, when you're talking about guys like Nick Ehlers, who gives up years. I mean, when we look at these extensions and these long-term deals that the Winnipeg Jets players have signed, you have to look at them, and this is how agents look at them, in terms of the unrestricted free agency years that you give away in that deal. So every time you sign a long-term extension, when you could have gone to unrestricted free agency at 27, but you sign until you're 31, then you gave away 4 unrestricted free agency years. That's how they look at this. And the Jets continually are able to get players to stick around and to do this. And in a case like this, where Adam Lowry is essentially an unrestricted free agent, in a couple months, he's there. We should count it as that. You're getting a guy to stick around and give away unrestricted free agency years. And unrestricted free agency years are years where a player can go and take the best overtures from everyone and maximize their contract. So Winnipeg Jets players are choosing time and time again not to maximize their contracts, not to go for the most money they can possibly get. They're choosing to stay in Winnipeg because they like it here. Now, it's strange. We've had conversations about this, but you still don't get unrestricted free agents coming to Winnipeg. I mean, if you think about the biggest free agent splash that this team has made, it's probably Mason in the crease and Dmitry Kulikov, right? And neither of those seem to work out very well.
Don't forget about Ole Jokinen as well, Sean.
There you go, Ole Jokinen. So when we look at it, I mean, the team still has a hard time getting players to come here, but it's probably been a blessing in disguise if we look at it, because how many teams put themselves in terrible spots by overspending on unrestricted free agency? My guess, I mean, we can't give too much credit. Kevin Cheveldayoff deserves amazing credit based on exactly what we're talking about. But my guess is there's probably a couple of times out there that Kevin Cheveldayoff has been offering money towards a player that if the player would have come, it wouldn't have worked out. It would have been an overpay and it would have ended up being a problem just because other teams are, there's tax sheltered states and these kind of things. I think a lot of other players took a deal elsewhere or thought that they'd have a better life somewhere else other than Winnipeg and took that and probably in the end saved the Winnipeg Jets. But so this is still not an unrestricted free agent city. If you don't know about Winnipeg, if you don't know what it likes to feel like you are, know what it is like to feel like you are a part of this team or be in this city, there remains that perception that this is a place that you don't want to be. But to the point you guys were making, if you come here and if you play here and if you spend time here and if you have time interacting with it, from the owner to the coach to the players to the community to the general manager, you walk away feeling like this is a place I want to be. I know what my role is here. It's very defined. I know how I fit in. I know that I'm part of a greater effort to do something. And I know that this is a team that takes seriously the effort to try and win the Stanley Cup. And we take for granted, guys, the number of other hockey teams and places and cities that don't necessarily approach this like that. Like the Winnipeg Jets have been building towards something and are now all in and have shown through their actions that they expect to and intend to be all in on winning the Stanley Cup this year, next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. And if you're a player that cares about stuff like that, it's great to be here rather than a city that's trying to figure things out, that is consistently, selling at the deadline, that really is not going to be getting anywhere. If you want to be a winner, if you want to feel like you're part of something, if you want to be part of a really well-run organization, and quite frankly, if you want to be part of a great community that cares about what you are doing and is a great place to live and has great people, then you want to stay in Winnipeg. And that's why people on the outside don't get it, but the people who are here really get it and they're buying it.
Sean Reynolds, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Sean, as I said to the guys earlier in the show, I had an old boss who said that Winnipeg is the hardest place to get people to come to, and then it's the hardest place to get people to leave. And you've certainly eloquently, emphasized that with your appearance so far this morning on the program. Let's get to the on-ice stuff now. I mean, obviously the Adam Lowry news was the big news of yesterday, but 2 days ago it was the Jets going into Toronto and really dominating the Maple Leafs in that 5-2 victory. We know the next stretch of games are all against either the Oilers or the Leafs. How important is this, next 5 games for this Jets team? They've sort of proven what they can do against the Leafs already this year, but that Oilers bugaboo has been the one team that's sort of given the Jets fits for the most part this season.
Well, I mentioned Adam Lowry and his ability to shut down Austin Matthews. This is what we need to start. Headband on his face. I'm sorry. You know what? This is a game we love to play on the show. Is we get the jokes from the audience and we throw them into the show and see if we can get the guests to stumble.
Sorry, Sean. I shouldn't have done that to you. I shouldn't have done that. I've seen you do that on the Kenny and Rennie show, so I figured it was time for a little bit of payback.
A little bit of a taste of my own medicine. I love doing that to Ken time and time again. I did it once to Elliot yesterday, and he kind of stumbled. And I was like, okay, I better not do that anymore. Yeah, I better not do that anymore. But so we've seen what Adam Lowry has been able to do to Austin Matthews. This is the one thing I feel Adam Lowry, I think, has done a phenomenal job shutting down Leon Draisaitl and making the Edmonton Oilers a one-man team when these two teams play. But that one-man line is enough to kill you. That's how good Connor McDavid is. And I have been fascinated by the way that the Oilers kind of deploy those two players. We talk about them not having the depth and that they're basically, run by those top two lines. And that's true. But what they do is those guys are in such good shape and they can push so hard for so long in a game that Connor McDavid goes out with his line and then Leon Draisaitl goes out with his line and then Dave Tippett sneaks them out together. So it's like they have 2.5 top lines, right? And it works. And so you get Connor McDavid, who's got the ability to kill you on the regular, Leon Draisaitl, who I think that Adam Lowry's done a pretty good job of shutting down. But then when you sneak out that 2.5 line with both McDavid and Draisaitl, that's been very effective at killing the Jets. And so I think that this is an interesting matchup because what we've seen from the Oilers and the Jets over the last 2 years is two teams that the depth of the Jets looks like on paper it should be killing the Oilers. But we know that it doesn't because these two teams are always within one goal of each other, and it's always a great game between these two teams. So the last 10 games of the season, or I guess we got 12 left. This is where we're getting to a stage that you're trying to lock in your playoff game, kind of identify who you are, who's going to go against which lines. And I still think of all the teams in the North Division, this is the last team that the Jets still have quite a bit of figuring out to do on how they're going to shut the Oilers down. So tonight, to me, is going to be a fascinating game on line deployment, how they use it, how the Jets choose to use their lines. I thought this last line juggle, I've been advocating since they took them apart at the beginning of the season to have Kopp, Ehlers, and Paul Stastny back together. I think that they have been the Jets' best line all this year. I'm glad that they've gone back to that so that we can have another look at that. I like the move Pierre-Luc Dubois to the wing. I think that's added, a defensive element to Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor's line that we haven't seen before. So I'm interested to see how those two lines stack up against the firepower that Edmonton clearly has. But I'm also interested to see how Paul Maurice utilizes those and tries to free up those two lines, as Adam Lowry is going to be the guy who goes to shut down one of those top two lines. I still expect it to be Leon Draisaitl's line because it's worked so well. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out tonight.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. And what I wanted to ask you was about the 6 days off that the Oilers have had, right? Because it's a very unique, I guess. Unique might not be the right word, just considering this has been the most unique year, and it seems like every team has gone through some weird stretch of the season, either with COVID or not related to COVID, but they haven't played in 6 days. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins isn't going to play tonight. So how much of an impact do you think that's going to have, versus a team that obviously, just played a couple of nights ago?
Yeah. Hey, what's the thing we've noticed this year with the Winnipeg Jets? The very last game of a long road trip where you think they should be dragging their behinds and not getting anything done, they always seem to show up and have phenomenal games. And Paul Maurice talks about it being like kind of the light at the end of the tunnel effect. Okay, we're going home, just one more last game. And everyone gets that jump that you don't expect a team to get on that last game on the road. But the counter to that is that first game home after the long road trips, it seems that they get a little bit dozy. They get home, they look in the fridge. Oh man, I better eat all this before it expires kind of effect. I don't know. Maybe it's the,
I've got some honey dill sauce right here. If any of the boys, if Lousy needs to borrow any, I've got some here.
Wasn't that hilarious? I mean, our comment section was just all in support of Adam Lowry as he was talking, and then he trashed honey dill sauce, and all of a sudden the chat room started to turn on him a little bit, and it was like, whoa, Adam, careful what you're doing here. But back to the point, I mean, dads get back and they're playing with their kids, and guys get back and they see their wives and girlfriends, and life, returns, and you've got responsibilities as a hockey player to still be a man and a father and a husband and a boyfriend, and those kind of roles step in. And I think it's been difficult for the Jets in this unique year because you're gone for so long in such a stretch of time that when you get back, there's a demand on you from your home life to spend a little bit of time once you get back. I think it's worn on them. So, I mean, if that trend continues, I expect to see a fully refreshed Edmonton Oilers team that I think in years past, when you've been off for a number of games, sometimes it can take you a little bit to get back into it. But rest is so prized and valued this year that I think teams don't want to disrespect the time off by not getting going when they come back. Like, you appreciate the rest you got, so don't you dare come out flat in the first game after it and disrespect the fact that you finally got that time off. Otherwise, your coach is going to take that time off, and he's not going to give you that time off. He's going to grind you in that time. So, I do think the Jets, just by that circumstance, are in a little bit tough here tonight. Again, I think the Jets are going to have a specific plan. I think the plan that they're going to try to execute to try and figure out a team that they could very likely play in the first round of the playoffs. This is a matchup or an opportunity to figure out how you match up, and you can't waste those. So I do think the Jets are going to be motivated here tonight. I expect a really good game and another tight, 1-goal game between the Oilers and the Jets as we are used to seeing.
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet is our guest. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Remember, check out Sean and Ken Weeb's show, the Kenny and Rennie Show, post game
and pregame.
And pregame on Instagram and Friday mornings on the YouTube channel. That's where you can all get your fill of Kenny and Rennie.
Yeah, let's not short those guys. They're doing they're doing a lot of good stuff. So no, Sean, you know what? I was looking at Ken tweeted out the lines and the D pairings, and one of the things that we see a swap of was Ville Heinola looks like he's not going to play tonight. Looks like it may be Logan Stanley. Do you think that? I mean, Paul Maurice seems to have signaled that there's going to be a platooning. He called it. And do you think that that's what we're going to see down the road? Because Logan Stanley didn't come out because of his play. Although Paul Maurice, again, he kind of said he liked his last game, didn't like the two prior to that. So do you think that that's what we'll see down the road with these guys, is that idea of he wants to get Jordy Ben in there, he wants to get Ville Heinola in there, so maybe Logan Stanley will come out a little more regularly than we've seen to allow those guys to get in and get some reps?
Yeah, entirely. And I think it's interesting because Paul Maurice, who sometimes, he'll let us in on stuff. Sometimes in player deployment, though, and what his plan for the future, he'll hold his cards close to the vest. I think that he tipped his cap after last game that Ville Heinola was coming out. And I think he's tipped his cap already that we will most definitely see Ville Heinola play again against the Toronto Maple Leafs specifically. I mean, that's what I take from what he said here. You're right, Jordy Ben, they're going to need to find a way to get him into the lineup to see who he fits with, how he fits with this lineup, how he would want to use him. So yeah, the platoon, I expect that to be happening. I think for him, it's important for him. He had said, he made it clear to Logan Stanley he wasn't coming out of the lineup based on play, and that's one of those. Everyone is talking about Ville Heinola and trying to find some space for him, and including Kevin Cheveldayoff, who I was surprised came out and said that. Usually he doesn't stick his nose into player deployment. He did that in this case, which I think is strange. It's uncommon. He doesn't do that. But from a coach's perspective, he has to look at it differently than all of us. We can scream and say, I think Ville Heinola is going to be special, which I think everybody does, and I think so. And we can say, we want him in the lineup right now. Paul Maurice is the guy that has to take someone out of the lineup to get him in and explain to that player why he's not in the lineup right now, and then manage the potential fallout from that. So if it's a veteran player, which we've seen people on social media calling for veteran players to come out, you have to manage, that veteran player's feelings of coming out of the lineup for a young player to get an addition. If it's Logan Stanley, who's been doing everything you've asked of him to try and stay in the NHL, when you're telling him he's coming out of the lineup and it's not because of his play, I mean, these are things you have to manage as a coach. So we can all play the game and have the lineups that we'd like to see. We never have to look a guy in the eye as we're taking him out of the lineup, or we never have to look a guy in the eye as we send him down to the AHL. Paul Maurice has to do that. He has to do it time and time again. And it's a reality of sports, and it has a real effect on the room, and it's his job to manage that. So going down the stretch here, I think him saying that it's going to be a platoon, I think he sent the message not just to us in the media, but to his players as well, that this is a strategy he's taking, that he has to take, that he has to get a look at everyone involved here. So if you end up being one of the casualties of this platoon, know that it has nothing to do with me thinking that you are weak and that you're not doing your job and that I need to take you out of the lineup, because I think we have a better chance of winning by taking you out of the lineup. Because that's the statement. The guy who comes into the lineup gets the benefit of the statement saying, I think we're better with you in the lineup. That's a huge boost of confidence. But when you're the guy getting taken out, whether the coach says so or not, it's hard not to look at it and say, hey, I'm getting taken out of the lineup because my coach and my team thinks they have a better chance of winning by eliminating me from that lineup. That can be hard to take. So, again, messages need to be managed by the coach. We can all say what we want about who wants to go there. Paul Maurice has to live with the ramifications of those decisions. And I think that as vocal as he's been and as clear and transparent as he's been doing that in a manner to manage that room.
Sean Reynolds bringing so much heat in that interview, they're going to need to repair the ice when practice is over, melting things down. Sean Reynolds and Ken Wiebe will be with the Kenny and Rennie pregame show. That's, I believe, at 5:15 tonight on their Instagram feed. And then later tonight, probably around 10:30, the post-game show. That'll be on the Kenny and Rennie YouTube channel. And, of course, Friday morning, the Kenny and Rennie show on their YouTube channel as well. Sean?
Oh, hold on. He's got something else.
Before you let me go, I just want to say I can't thank you guys enough for all the traffic that you send our way, for all the bumps that you give us. You are our brothers. We appreciate you like crazy. We absolutely adore the work that you do. It means so much to us, the push and the bump that you've given us and the welcoming nature that you've had into this space that we're all going into here. It means the world to us. And just
it's
like
our
I
pleasure,
said the last
Sean.
time,
it's no sweat off our backs. We love it. So we're going to continue to do it. You guys as well. If we're going to start, throwing the love back and forth, I mean, you guys as well do an awesome job. So we're going to continue doing it. It's our pleasure, man.
Well, I just need to make it clear. Last time I was on this show, I said it was a little bit of a dream come true. Finally getting to talk hockey with you guys. That was no BS. That's how I feel. It means a ton for me to be back on with you guys. And we feel so supported by you guys. And I can tell you, when you guys do your post-game show, which is awesome, and you toss guys towards our show, we always get people tumbling. We know when your show ends because our numbers go from here to here, and people come walking into the room and they say, I'm here because Illegal Curve sent me. And we love that, and it means the world to us. And I just want to thank you guys for that, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you here today. It means a ton.
There he goes, Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet. Sean. Love you, brother. We'll do it again real soon, and we'll see you at the rink again. Take care. There he goes, Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet, covering tonight's game for Sportsnet, the Jets and the Oilers later on tonight. And again, such a brotherhood and a camaraderie that exists between all of us. And Sean really doing a great job there, sort of summing that up.
I think Sean should just stick around with us. Sean, just stay with us.
Sean, you can stay on the show if you want. We don't have to leave.
They're going to bump me, though. That's the problem. They'll keep
we'll
you
get rid
of
Drew
me really
and keep you on, Sean.
I have to go and do the player avails.
Oh, yeah, it's starting right now.
Actual job, but otherwise I would have been all over it, guys. But appreciate your time.
We'll see you at the rink.
Bye, brother. There you go. Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet departing from the program this morning. Sean's appearance on the show brought to you by Dr. Les Rikus and the team at Linden Market Dental Center, official dentist of Illegal Curve Hockey. Don't be an Ezzy. Always wear a mouth guard and give yourself peace of mind protection as well as facial, teeth, and mouth protection. To make an appointment to get your teeth to ting, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com.
I thought my son Ruben might have to, I was just going to say, Ruben ran into a trampoline right before he went to bed last night. I was thinking he might have to maybe go visit Dr. Les Rikus, but fortunately it was just a little mark on his nose, but man, did he smack into that thing. Like it was just, it was incredible. And Drew, what it's like.
Why do you have a trampoline in his bedroom, Ezzy? That just seems weird.
No, it's in the living room. It's one of those little small trampolines. You guys probably have one, Drew.
Actually, we were never trampoline people for whatever reason. I know what you're talking about.
Hold on, so am I a trampoline person? I don't even know what that means, but it's just a little kid's trampoline. I mean, it's not a huge trampoline, but yeah. Anyways, I just thought I'd mention that. I was a little bit worried that there might be some dental work required, and that's why we always have Dr. Les on a retainer.
There, pardon the pun there with the retainer word, right? Was that a pun or was that just a happy coincidence?
No, that was a pun. I was trying to be punny.
Okay, well, you are very punny. And let's talk about, obviously some of Sean's comments and I guess the changes to the Jets defense again tonight. In that Logan Stanley is going to come back in by the sounds of it. Ville Heinola not going to play. Jordy Ben was also on the ice during Jets practice this morning. I mean, no surprise that he's not going to play. But I do think you're going to see him at some point in time between now and the end of the regular season. So, I guess your thoughts about, Heinola sort of just getting that one game against the Leafs and then back out of the lineup for tonight's game against the Oilers.
Yeah, I wonder, Dave, if any of that has to do with the fact that you've got some extra time between games, right? Like what I mean is, maybe if there wasn't as many days between games, like you stick with Heinola, knowing that Logan Stanley has a chance to come in, right? Yeah. So you're right, Drew. I mean, I think we expected this, right, guys? Like you can't just get Ville Heinola into one game and then he sits for the next 3 weeks or whatever. I would assume that, what do we have, 12 games left here? I would expect him to, I don't know, get half of those games, maybe three quarters of those games. I mean, I would think it would be closer to half, because Sean Reynolds mentioned this, and it was a great interview, by the way. And, Paul Maurice does have to manage this situation delicately, because it's not just Ville Heinola's games that you're trying to get him into, right? You also don't want Logan Stanley to just be a healthy scratch for, a week or two at a time, right? So that's what I would expect. I would expect, Ville Heinola to probably be in the next game against the Leafs.
I think Ezzy makes a good point. I think the idea is that if there was another game in 2 days, then you're more likely to let Ville Heinola play tonight, see how he does against the Oilers. Again, you've got some speed on that Oilers team. He could see how he handles those guys, and then you could go back to Logan Stanley when the Leafs were in town. But I think because of the nature of the structure of the schedule right now, and obviously folks know, and if they don't, just let them know that this was supposed to be a 6-game homestand. It's now a 5-game homestand because the Jets have canceled the Wednesday. They changed the time, obviously. Tonight's game was supposed to be 9, is now a 6 o'clock game. And they moved the Wednesday game to Thursday. They moved the Friday game to Saturday. And
the Friday game moved to May 14th.
I think it's Saturday, May 14th or something like that. Or maybe it's
Friday May 14th.
Friday, May 14th. So you've got that schedule changed now. So you've got a 5-game homestand instead of what it was. And so, although
more importantly than that, after tonight's post-game show, I'll tell you one thing's for sure. Both of your guys' phone numbers are getting blocked on me. No text messages until at least Wednesday from you two guys.
The irony is that you think either one of us would text you without any reason to text you.
Please text me. I'm so lonely.
Now, actually, the one thing that's interesting, though, and because of the schedule change, I'll quickly note that, is that I may have to be in 2 places at once, because for the first time in the history of Winnipeg's NHL and AHL teams being in the same city, there will be a Jets game and a Moose game at the exact same time in Winnipeg. It's happened when one's in the city and one's on the road, or both have been on the road, but it's never happened where both are in the same city. So I've long.
So how are they going to do that, Dave? Like, how are they going to use the same rink at the same time?
Well, that would be interesting, but
they're just going to take turns, I guess. Like when the Jets game's in the intermission, then the Moose will go out there.
Yeah, they're going to.
I take it too seriously. I honestly thought he was asking that question legitimately, and I was about to answer him, and then I realized,
Drew, come on, you've known me long enough. I'm an enigma. You can never know what's going on inside of my head.
I just usually imagine it's yum 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 yum.
No, but I mean, anyways, it'll be real interesting to see how I'm going to try and be at both the downtown arena and the Iceplex. I'm just going to have to, maybe I'll get a police escort. I'll fly up Portage. It's only about a 10-minute drive, maybe 5 if I can speed with the police, and then that way I can cover both games.
I don't see any flaws with your plan.
Or I could be at the Jets game watching I can be downtown, and maybe I'll watch the Moose game on.
It's very simple, Dave. You have to clone yourself. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. It's like, obviously the answer is cloning. I mean, I don't know why that's so difficult for you to comprehend, but
I wish you've already done it with sheep. I mean, it's got to be right around the corner for us humans, right?
I'd get a lot more work done if that was the case. That'd be fantastic.
Anyways, obviously we mentioned Stanley back in the lineup, Jordy Ben on the ice. I do think that between now and the end of the regular season, so the next 12 games, you're going to see Jordy Ben come into the Jets lineup, and likely at times for Tucker Poolman, because Jordy Ben is a really interesting case in that he can play both sides, but throughout his career, he's had the most success playing on his offside, which would be the right side. So that would be an opportunity to get Tucker Poolman some rest, to give, the more I dig into the Jordy Ben trade, the more I like it. Simply because, I mean, I'm looking back at his time in Montreal, and I know that it's a couple years ago. But, when he was in Montreal, he played well on playing on the right side. When he played on the right side in Vancouver, he played well. So his numbers in Vancouver, primarily when he was playing on the left side, were pretty lousy. I'll be frank; they were just pretty lousy. But when he was playing on the right side, he was pretty successful, both in Montreal and in Vancouver. So I think there's more upside, let's say, to the acquisition than I initially thought when the trade happened on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think part of the reaction to the Jordy Ben acquisition was the fact that there wasn't another, top pairing or top 4 defenseman acquired, right? So I think was part of it. But I mean, he's a solid signing. Like you mentioned, Drew, like the advanced stats are definitely better when he's on the right side. But he's that third pairing kind of 7th defenseman, right? And I agree with you. I think if he is going to get into the lineup, it'll probably be for Tucker Poolman. I mean, most likely, guys, we know it's going to be in a third pairing role. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases where with Nate Beaulieu out, you needed to bring in another depth defenseman, right? Like you've got Ville Heinola, Logan Stanley, and Jordy Ben all kind of competing for ice time now, right? Like we know who the staples are in the lineup. So I always like the move. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he's going to get into some games, and I mean, we know that the Jets aren't fighting for a playoff spot. So it's not like you have to worry, about who your matchup is and when you put this guy in or you put that guy in. I really think Paul Maurice is comfortable, whether it's, putting in Ville Heinola against the Leafs or, putting Jordy Ben in against the Oilers. It's going to be really interesting to see how he uses the defenseman, but I do think it's going to be basically, for lack of a better term, it's just going to be a rotation.
Yeah, and I think that's an opportunity for the Jets to keep some players fresh, for Paul Maurice to, I'll use the word experiment, but I think that's probably too strong of a word. Just an opportunity for him to get some guys some rest. And we knew the Jets needed another defenseman. And, so often players come back from, you're playing in Vancouver. It's been such a crummy year in Vancouver, on ice wise, off ice with the COVID. Would it surprise anybody if Jordy Ben sort of gets a hook up to the rejuvenation machine when he comes to Winnipeg? And I'm not going to say he's obviously going to turn into a world beater or anything like that, because that would be overstating his skill set. But there's a lot about it as a depth pickup that I like more as I consider it, Dave.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, and then Dave can get in here. No, I just wanted to quickly say that I think the point that you made about the right side is very important, and I think it's important because if the Jets had acquired a defenseman, Ben's a bad example because he can play the right side, but if the Jets had acquired a defenseman that couldn't play both sides, it would be virtually impossible for that defenseman to get into the lineup. Right? Because you have Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley. That's why it was a smart move by Chevy, right? Because we talked about it, or at least, I kept mentioning it, that I thought, the right side needed to be addressed more. And it turns out that's kind of what he's doing, even though Ben can play both sides. But that's, I think something that you have to really factor in here is that if they had acquired a left shot defenseman, like let's say it's Jamie Oleksiak, or, that might be a bad example because he might have been a second pairing guy, but you would have had Dave a logjam on the left side. Mm-hmm. Now you don't have a logjam. The next man up, if Stanley's in the lineup, it's going to be Ville Heinola that goes in. If Ville Heinola's in the lineup, it's going to be Stanley that goes in. But on the right side, if Tucker Poolman comes out, it's going to be Jordy Ben that goes in. So I think you have, your roster's looking good right now. And obviously Sami Niku is in there as well, but I think we'd all agree he's the number 8, number 9 defenseman at this point. So yeah, the depth chart is looking pretty good. Is it as good as some other teams? Well, no. I mean, Toronto's got more depth. Their defense is better, but I really think when you look at that division, I think the Jets are right up there, certainly with Montreal in terms of D depth, and I would say their D depth is better than Edmonton. That's for sure. So yeah, I mean, Jordy Ben I think rounds out the defense nicely there.
Yeah, and I was just going to give a quick update from Morning Skate from Ken Weeb, who said that Blake Wheeler stayed on, as did Ville Heinola. So Blake Wheeler not ready to go, and Paul Maurice somewhat signaled this, right? He said that he was going to have his line set probably after the Edmonton game, where he'd like to let them go for a roll. Well, what does that mean? Originally, it meant 3 days off, and then he would have more time for Blake Wheeler, and then he'd have his forward line set. And he also signaled, and he's reiterated this point, that he was going to be seeing more changes on the D. And I think that's kind of one of the things that, he wants that forward group going, but the D, he can kind of have that luxury of playing with and not having to worry about disrupting things too much because he's going to get these guys in. So again, I'm not terribly surprised that Blake Wheeler is not playing. I mean, we said that as much yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, we spoke last. And I said, I don't think he's going to go because they're going to want to get him into a practice and get him an opportunity to bump and grind. And obviously he's wearing a contact uniform. So that's a good sign. Mm-hmm. But again, a more of a practice type setting where he can take some hits, give some hits, see how he comes out of that. And if he's feeling good, then my guess is you'll see him in the next Jets game. And again, from Paul Maurice's perspective, you'll have 4 days of rest, obviously with some practice time in there, and you'll have an opportunity to get your team healthy and feeling good. And then again, to Ezzy's point, we're going to see that platoon. We're going to see the defenseman coming in. My guess is you'll see maybe Ville Heinola and Jordy Ben come in. Who knows? Or if he's going to try and do it like a little dip in the toe, maybe just do the one at a time and that sort of thing. I'm not entirely certain how, Paul Maurice will do that. As forward thinking. We got to think about what tonight's game is, which is the Edmonton Oilers, and what that's going to look like. So, and they're speaking right now to the media. So I'm not sure if there's anything of note being said. I'm not monitoring it because I'm talking to you guys.
I haven't seen anything yet, but of course, anything that comes up, we will bring to you on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. When we come back, I want to ask you guys about the importance of the next 5 games as the Jets play against the Oilers and the Leafs, the other 2 top teams in the North Division. The Jets' lack of success or their middling record against the Oilers so far this year. Do the Jets need to have a quote-unquote statement game like they've had against the Leafs on a couple of occasions this season? Think about that. When we come back, I want your answer to that question. Saturday morning, we're live. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. You're watching the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. You're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whitened my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
"I sure do."
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve Sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Nice to see Dave making it back into his chair in time. It was a little touch and go there, as I can see what's happening on the backstage camera, and it looked like Minuk coming through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man, something like that, as he made it back from his little sojourn during the commercial break.
It's having
Your
a good
house
chat
isn't
with
that big, Dave. I mean, it's a good size house, but you make it seem like you're running a marathon to get up all those stairs.
I'm a little bit
It's a lot of stairs. What is it, Dave? 40 stairs, 50 stairs?
I mean, come on. This is a palatial estate, Drew. Come on.
That's true. It is a palatial palace. I got to say, though, immediately I see people in the chat talking about, I guess, I don't know if it's a Dave Minuk fan club, something like that, called the Minuk Troop. I'm not sure if I'm on board with that or not.
Whoa, I like it. I've never heard of that, but I mean, I'm in.
Well, you've heard of F Troop, right? The cartoon?
No. What is that?
No? Okay, fair enough. Ezzy? You're muted.
Yeah. Well, first off, let me take myself off of mute. Yeah, I remember Goof Troop for sure.
Right. Goof Troop, F Troop, all those troops. Now apparently we're adding Minuk Troop to the lesson. Anyways, that's
I like
all
Minuk
good.
Troop.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, everybody. This segment brought to you by Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty, official realtors of Illegal Curve Hockey. When 95% of your clients come via referral, it shows your commitment to honesty, integrity, and a total dedication to client satisfaction. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, come shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia online at zapiagroup.com.
We know who Morrow's going to be cheering for tonight because, of course, he's a big Oilers fan, but not Frank. Frank is a diehard Jets fan, so there's going to be a little bit of a disagreement, I think, in the Zappia family tonight.
Well, based on the real estate market, my understanding is neither of those guys have been able to watch many games live right now, because I'm pretty sure if you put your house up for sale, you get twice what you're asking for, given what I'm seeing in some of the
really?
It's a hot real estate market for sellers. It's a seller's market right now. Well, yeah, I know. I mean, that dumpster, you could get at least twice what you paid for leasing in it or sleeping in it.
You got to see what I've done to the dumpster, though. There's been some major renos. I've made it look really nice. I put a window in there. I really made it look nice and shiny.
It's got a trampoline also, doesn't it?
It was a trampoline someone threw in that dumpster, but yeah,
that's right. But
where do you think I got the trampoline for my kids?
I don't doubt it. I know completely there, Oscar. Anyway, still to join us on the program this morning, Harnarayan Singh is going to join us in about 10 minutes' time. He's covering tonight's Jets-Oilers game. And then at the top of the hour, our buddy Dave Jamieson, he covers the Edmonton Oilers on TSN 1260. He's going to join us on the program as well, get some perspective from the Oilers portion. So the question I had for both of you guys before the break was, do the Jets need a statement victory over the Oilers like we've seen over the Leafs a couple of different times this season? If you look at the Jets' record against the Oilers, they're the only team that the Jets are under 500 against, 2-4-0 against Edmonton right now this year. They have the only team that they have a negative goal differential against, 20 goals for, 22 goals against. Do the Jets need sort of a complete victory against the Oilers tonight to feel confident when they play them likely in the playoffs?
I think they just want a victory, Drew. Aren't we past the point in the season where we're talking about statement victories? I'm not saying it's not a valid question, but I mean, both of these teams are going to the playoffs. We know the Jets are a top team in the North Division, right? It remains to be seen if the Jets are going to catch the Leafs. They're going to have to go on a little bit of a run, but they're within striking distance, right? 3 points back puts you within striking distance. If you're 7 points back at this point in the season, yeah, you're probably not going to catch them, but I don't think the Jets are trying to prove anything at this point. I think they're just trying to win games. And, Sean Reynolds said it, I thought, quite eloquently. Obviously, I can't say eloquently, very eloquently. But, he was saying that, you want to know, how some of your lines match up against the Oilers lines, right? And, the Jets are lucky. The Oilers aren't going to have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in the lineup. He's been out of the lineup for a little bit here, and he's back in Edmonton. But obviously, I mean, when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the ice, those are the two guys you have to worry about. But this Oilers team is pretty good, guys. I think, the biggest surprise this season has to be Mike Smith. There's no doubt in my mind, that Mike Smith has been one of the better stories in the NHL. He's not going to be a Vezina contender, but he's been really good for the Oilers. And I remember, we talked about it on the show when the Oilers made their moves. You're thinking oh, maybe Braden Holtby is going to be brought in, or, before Corey Crawford retired and signed with the Devils, I thought Crawford, you know what I mean, Dave? Somebody like that. I think, but look at Mike Smith. His numbers are really good. He's won a lot of games. Save percentage is, I forget exactly what it is, 920. He's 39 years old.
But for Mike Smith, last year he was good in the regular season also. It always comes down to the playoffs, and we know what happened in the play-in round to Edmonton last year, where they couldn't stop a beach ball and somehow lost to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right. That's what I'm saying, Drew. I think based on the performance by Smith in the playoffs, that's why a lot of people thought that, myself included, I think ourselves included, thought Edmonton might, bring in another goaltender. So I'm just saying, you're right. I mean, Mike Smith's had a great career. I'm not saying that, all of a sudden at 39 years old, he's a good goaltender. I mean, going back to his days with Arizona, he was an excellent goaltender. All I'm saying is, I think that has been, he's won them some games. He's stolen some games. And I think, this Oilers team is more than just McDavid and Draisaitl. Kaylor Yamamoto's a really good player. Jesse Puljujarvi's been really good. And, the line tonight, guys, they've been practicing with this line, but the line tonight might be McDavid, Draisaitl, and Puljujarvi, which is one of those super lines. So obviously that's going to be, one of the lines the Jets have to shut down. But you always have to worry about McDavid and Draisaitl individually. So I think the Jets are just going into this game thinking that, they want to beat a team who, as you said, they've struggled against this year. But I don't think the result of this game is really going to have any impact on anything. I mean, both of these teams are going to the playoffs, and they're most likely going to face each other in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to what Ezzy's saying, I think you don't need to make a statement. You're not going to, if you lose tonight's game, it's not like your season is over by any stretch. It's not that you can't beat the Edmonton Oilers. The only thing I would say is because of the way that, and I said this the other night, the way that things went in Edmonton when the Jets were on that road trip out west is the reason why the Jets are going to want to have a good game tonight. And I mean, other than you want to get your home stand, you're feeling good about your team. You know the way the team is going to look. It's essentially the same team with the exception of swapping in Stanley for Heinola. So again, I think there's an impetus on the Jets to win. It's not like it's not that you're clawing for the playoffs. It's not like you're trying to secure your spot. But yeah, again, Drew, I think you want to establish that you can beat the Edmonton Oilers.
Right. So isn't there a peace of mind component if the Jets go out and they defeat the Oilers handily tonight, or they just defeat the Oilers? Let's say it's a 3-2 victory or it's a 4-2 victory, whatever it might be. I mean, they don't have to blow them out 8-0 because that's not realistic. But a complete game against this Oilers team where the Jets have sort of been lacking in that area, all year long. It's the only team they haven't sort of played that complete game against. Doesn't that sort of go at least make a little bit of a difference confidence-wise?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You're right, Drew. This Oilers team, the record shows it. This is the team that they have had the most trouble with, not the Leafs, right? It has not been the Leafs. Right. And that was the team that we thought was going to be the top team in the North Division, and they are the top team in the North Division. As we talked about before, the Jets and the Oilers can still both catch them. I mean, Jets have a better shot right now, but the point is that the Jets have not had, even the games that they've won against the Oilers have not been their better games. And obviously, I can't remember which game it is now, but there was the late goal. You guys will have to, refresh me. I killed too many brain cells in my brain.
Less than a second to go.
There you go. It was, and that was in Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
It was.
So I mean, that game you expected to at least get a point, right? So, but going back to what you said before, this Oilers team is the one team that has given the Jets the most problems. So I agree with you. Tonight, regardless of the score, you obviously want to get the win, but you also want to have, a good 60 minutes. It's cliche, but you're going to play this team most likely in the playoffs. If it's not in the first round, could be in the second round. So this is going to be a fun one. And I like the fact that it's early, selfishly just, so I have a little bit more time to party this Saturday night, but also, and by party, I mean, go to bed at 10 o'clock, but, I think it is going to be interesting.
Can you come on the post-game show in your pajamas? I don't think that's asking too much. Maybe a little nightcap, something like that. Not a nightcap like a drink, but an actual nightcap.
I don't wear pajamas, Drew. You know what I'm
saying. I don't know anybody wants to see what Ezzy wears to bed, so I think that's not safe for TV.
No, it's not safe for anybody to close their eyes when they think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a frightening proposition.
Anyways,
there.
I think that, Drew. I think that's what we were all saying. I think it's not a function of it being a must-win. You've got a 5-point cushion over the Oilers. No. They've got 2 games in hand on Winnipeg, of course.
Yep.
But I think it's one of those situations where, based on how things went against the Oilers, teams do have long memories. You remember that the Oilers have done. Oh, that's funny. So I think that's one of the
factors. Mike, it's actually extra large.
The pajamas, because we know the other thing sure as hell isn't.
No,
Drew, get your mind out of the gutter, man. What are you talking about?
Dear Lord.
I'm done.
I will say, like I said, it's funny. Like when Sean was on, and I brought the comment up so he would to throw him off a little bit, because it was funny because I saw them when they were doing their interview with Elliot Friedman yesterday, and he brought up Sean's headband, which is, like I said, that account changed.
It's the best
everything.
name ever.
Yeah, like that account changed everything. Ezzy and I often talk about the different people that participate, and Sean's headband is like maybe next level. So
do we have Sean's headband in the chat right now?
I don't see him right now, him or her. So I mean, I'm a little disappointed. I'm not gonna lie.
I guess it could be a her. Yeah.
It
could be. It's an it, guys. It doesn't have gender attached to it.
It's an inanimate carbon rod. That's what.
Fair enough. The point is that it was just very funny. And then when I brought that up, and then knocked Sean off his game a little, because he does that to Ken as much as he can on their show. So love to have fun with those guys. And you know,
making Weber laugh is a bit of a contest in and of itself.
I don't know. Kenny's got a good sense of humor.
And what's this with North End Rick coming in with a good morning, fellas, at 10:28? Where have you been, Rick?
Man, no, you know what Rick's on? He's on Ezzy time right now. That slide in an hour and a half late. But no, I you know, the one thing I will say, and Sean's 100% right. Like, we have such a good synergy with their show. Everything has worked out so well. From being able to go on, send everybody, the dialogue continues with them, and they love it and we love it. And the fact is, it's like usually we do at least about an hour post game. They do at least an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. So you're getting 2.5 hours of post game. So it's been really good in that regard. And the community that's sprung up here online, we love it. And obviously folks love the dialogue. So it's really good. And we're loving this new format.
Exactly. Well said there, Mr. Minuk. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. This segment of the program brought to you by Bernstein's Deli, official deli of Illegal Curve Hockey and home of the Illegal Curve Sandwich. Located in the Cordon Village Mall, Bernstein's Deli has been Winnipeg's deli destination for over 30 years. For more information, find them on Facebook or at bernsteinsdeli.com. Bernstein's Deli is there for you, whatever you need. Curbside delivery, pickup, just give them a call, bernsteinsdeli.com. And without further ado, we're pleased to welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Harnarayan Singh joins us on the line now. Harnarayan, good morning. Nice to see you. Happy Saturday to you.
Yeah, happy Saturday to you guys as well. And I've been looking forward to being on. I've been hearing some good things from all of the rest of the Jets media about you guys. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's nice. Don't believe anything that they say at all. Usually, you know, for now we'll play nice. You can ask them off air really what they think of us, but that's a separate issue entirely. Harnarayan, obviously the Jets and the Oilers tonight at downtown Winnipeg. You'll have the call on CBC and now the 6 o'clock game, so you get a little bit of an earlier call than the 9 o'clock game. You know, post-trade deadline, the Jets and the Oilers, they've been sitting there sort of second, third. You know, the Jets, you know, putting a little bit of pressure now on the Leafs after the victory on Thursday night. What are you expecting from tonight's contest between the Jets and the Oilers?
I think we'll be seeing a pretty even matchup. All of these games have been very close, and if you think about it, even out of the Jets' losses, I believe 3 of them were 1-goal games, and then there was the one, if you remember, that was the 2-goal. It was one of them that was the 1-goal game was a goal with less than a second left in regulation, and the 2-goal game loss for the Jets was included an empty netter. They've always been very evenly matched up. Now, the one thing, and I know you guys just mentioned this as well, with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins not in the lineup, that is a big loss in terms of the depth chart. In terms of the centers for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, playing Draisaitl and McDavid on the same line against the Jets, I don't think you could do that against the Jets. Yes, you can get away with it against Ottawa, and it works. And so the Oilers just milk that to 9 wins in a row against that team. But against the Jets, when you have center depth like the way you do, with Scheifele and now obviously Lowry with his shining new contract. You got Dubois, you got Stastny, you got Thompson. I don't think you can afford to have McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line. So you just have to spread it out with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins not in the lineup. There is such a big drop off. My boy Jujhar Khaira, who's from the South Asian, from the Punjabi community, I mean, he's done an admirable job in the third line center role. He didn't start off the season as even a regular in the lineup, though. Like, he started off the season as, you know, a hit and miss, and then once he was kind of scratched, then he came in and grabbed a hold of that spot, which they were hoping Kyle Turris would actually be that guy for them, right? So the center depth for them is so slim, so that's the thing that I'll be interested to see, is how the Oilers tackle that against the Jets without Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is it's a really big loss without him in the lineup.
Harnarayan, we always like to, you know, get the outside perspective. You know, obviously you're very familiar with the Jets and you've called Jets games this year, but you know, someone who's not, you know, following the team, on a daily basis. And, I guess, you would agree that a lot of people thought that, Chevy might make, a bigger splash as opposed to just bringing in Jordy Ben. But do you think that the Jets are getting enough credit in this division? Because I think, we all agree that, Toronto not only is the first place team, but they're really, the favorite to come out of the North Division. But, based on what everybody was predicting at the beginning of the season, do you think the Jets are getting enough credit for, potentially being a Stanley Cup contender?
No. The simple answer to that is no. I don't think they're getting enough credit. I don't think they were even at the beginning of the season, and I don't think they are now. I think this team is scary good in terms of they're built for the playoffs. In terms of the forward depth that they have, in terms of how Paul Maurice has this team as such a close-knit group to get together, you can just tell in terms of how he talks about the team, in terms of how the players talk about one another. This is a close-knit group. They've, the core has been together for a while now, and they're ready to take that next step. Connor Hellebuck is one of the best goaltenders in the league. Yes, so you could talk about the defense as being their one weakness, but that's been the amazing thing about the Jets, is that this team has had so much turnover on the blue line, as you all know, and it's been fascinating to watch as an outsider's perspective, because everybody was thinking doomsday when you saw all those guys leave. But I give credit to the Jets, their scouts for realizing Neil Pionk was that good. And I remember calling some of those Rangers games from afar, and he was always noticeable, right? Like you would notice that Neil Pionk, this guy's got some wheels and he can dangle, and he's got skill, but I didn't realize that he had that physicality to him. And so, you haven't really missed Trouba much at all. And I think that just the way that Paul Maurice is as a coach too, I think at some point he's going to get there. I just have that feeling. He's such a great guy. He's honestly my favorite coach in the game right now. And I've had some wonderful experiences, just things that he does out of his human nature. I remember my very first game on the English side, that was a Jets game. This would have been probably 2016 or so. And I was in on Hockey Night in Canada as a host. And I'm walking through the Saddle Dome hallways, and Paul Maurice comes up out of his own way, like unprompted by me. Obviously, I know who he is, and he's a legend in the hockey coaching world. But he comes up and he shakes my hand and he goes, "Love what you're doing, love what you're doing." And I just wanted to introduce myself, and I was blown away. Like, I wrote about that in my book too, because it's such a kind gesture, and it really shows the type of person he is. And I find that, like, the way he has this team running, it's a well-oiled machine, and I think that makes them scary good in terms of playoffs.
Harnarayan Singh is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Harnarayan will have the call tonight. The Jets and the Oilers, a 6 o'clock start on CBC, on Sportsnet, and across the entire Hockey Night in Canada network.
Harnarayan, I got the fire going for you just in case, because I believe last time you were in Winnipeg, it was a wee bit colder. It's warmed up since, but it was a little cold, I think, the last time you were here. But, I want to ask you about Mike Smith. I mean, he seems to be, as he was talking about in our last segment, seems to be sipping from the fountain of youth. I don't know what's going on in Edmonton, but what has been the key to his kind of, again, he didn't have a terrible year last year. His numbers were okay, but they've improved a lot this year. So is it the team in front of him has been better, or has he himself been better?
Okay, well, first of all, in terms of that fireplace, I don't know if you guys remember, it was Hockey Day in Canada. My beard absolutely froze, and they Jason York, who was my color commentator that day, he was adamant about showing it on the air. So they actually showed my frozen beard on national television, which was quite funny. But Mike Smith, Dave Tippett said something earlier this season which really stands out, and he said in his entire career of coaching, Mike Smith is in the top 3 athletes that he has ever coached in his life. And so the way that Mike Smith keeps himself in shape and how driven he is, it's a rarity in that sense. So he might be 39, but he's not a true 39 in the sense, because he also is this type of player. And okay, so let's start with this fascinating storyline. The Oilers were chasing Jacob Markstrom in the offseason, right? They offered one more year, even in terms of term, than the Calgary Flames did. And then Jacob Markstrom decides to sign with the Flames. And I remember Ken Holland, the general manager of the Oilers, also a very personable, a very genuine fellow. Like, he's not the type of person that you see angry very often. And I remember that press conference where after free agents, the reporters are all standing there and they go to Dave Tippett, like, what happened with Jacob Markstrom? We heard you guys were real close to signing him. And that was probably the most angry I've seen Ken Holland since he's come to Alberta. And he was kind of like, you can ask Jacob Markstrom what happened. He goes, don't ask me, right? And I was like, wow, okay. So and so if you think about that storyline, like the Oilers had moved on from Mike Smith. Like they're stuck with Mikko Koskinen because of that. The term that he got from Peter Chiarelli and the amount of money he has. It's an untradeable contract. But Mikko Koskinen hasn't been their biggest issue either. You can't put everything, blame him for all of the Oilers' issues that they've had. But Mike Smith was not in the picture, and Mike Smith was probably not on any team's radar. Like, this guy was probably going to be out of work. And so that Markstrom idea doesn't pan out. And then, they're looking around for other areas, like maybe Peter Mrazek and, even taking a look at Jimmy Howard, if he would come back, and none of that works out. And it's like this blessing in disguise, because Mike Smith shows up and he is more fired up than ever to prove everybody wrong. He has so much more motivation because he knows that storyline too. And the thing, though, that what he brings for the Oilers that's very unique is that he brings this personality with him. He brings this kind of oomph, this swagger that maybe the team doesn't necessarily have as much of in terms of veteran leadership and character. And so he brings that, and I think that's quite a bit of an important element for the Oilers in their dressing room to kind of keep them going and to kind of just provide that extra fire to the team and its leadership. And so I think he's had a great season on the ice, obviously, stats-wise, but he's providing a lot of leadership to that dressing room as well.
Harnarayan, the trade deadline was obviously about 5 days ago, and the Jets opted to do something very small, acquiring Jordy Ben, depth player, depth defenseman. The Oilers went out and got Dmitry Kulikov. He's going to play higher up in their lineup, which I think speaks to their maybe shortcomings on defense. And then you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. They made a bigger splash, of course. David Riddick from Calgary to add to their goaltending depth. Nick Foligno, that's the biggest acquisition, obviously, in the North Division. They paid a hefty sum for him. Which method do you or which way do you think is going to be more successful? The big splash that the Leafs made, or the minor tweaks that the Jets and the Oilers ended up making?
Yeah, well, I think one is a short-term success in the sense that the Leafs are basically, they're going all in right now, and I think this is their opportunity because they're not having to face a Boston or a Tampa Bay right away, right, early in the playoffs. So I think that's kind of, they're putting all their eggs in one basket and going for it. And in terms of the Jets and the Oilers, this is I think Kevin Cheveldayoff would have wanted to do more, but the prices were probably too high, and we know he's smart and he's diligent and he won't, overpay. And so I think what the Oilers and the Jets did is a smart move for the long term, and not long term like 5-7 years down the road. I'm just thinking next season and the season beyond that. Like the fact that they didn't kind of throw out all their assets and spend them all on this is going to be war. Like these playoffs amongst any of these Canadian teams, whether it's Toronto, Montreal, whether it's Edmonton, Winnipeg, like, yeah, we can have an indication of who we think will kind of come out on top, but I wouldn't be so surprised if it was the other way. Like Montreal has a big, heavy defensive group over there. That's not going to be easy for anybody to get past too. Like Montreal has given the Oilers fits a lot of times, and if there's other teams out there who haven't been able to control McDavid and Draisaitl, well, Montreal has been able to do that, right? So I just think that this is a very unique situation, and so it probably didn't make sense for the Jets and the Oilers to spend a ton of assets and to go out there and get it. And for the Oilers, they're going to have a lot of cap space after this season, and that's probably when they're going to go and try to get the missing pieces that they need. And so for Jordy Ben, and speaking of him, I've watched him play. Like, he was obviously with the Montreal Canadiens and with the Vancouver Canucks. This is not just any, ordinary defenseman. This is a very serviceable guy who can move up and down your defensive pairs. He's got, he's reaching closer and closer to 500 games in his NHL career. I believe he's 400 something. And so he's got experience as well. And I think it's still a really good pickup, because in the playoffs, you as the saying goes, you can't have too many. You need a lot of defensemen.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you about the Vancouver Canucks, because it's obviously a terrible situation, and they haven't played games, and I want to say it's been about 3 weeks now, and I'm not sure if you're scheduled to call any Canucks games coming up. They only have the 2 games against the Jets at home in Winnipeg, I should say, coming up. I believe it's the second week of May, if I'm not mistaken, but. Like, just looking at that schedule, and I was just looking at it, like, are they going to just have to have like 10 oxygen tanks on the bench at all times? Because you look at the schedule, I think they have 5 back-to-back games scheduled. Obviously, I'm joking, and we're just hoping that everyone comes out of this healthy. But I guess, do you think the game that's scheduled this week is actually going to happen with everything that's going on, and just how difficult must that be for that Canucks organization, just with so many games that are going to have to take place in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult situation, to say the least. I had COVID way last year, middle of last year, and so I remember. It can take a toll on you, and yeah, some people have a more mild experience with it. Some people moderate, and some people it can really bother you. But there are some lingering effects, right? Like fatigue wise, or I remember the first few times I was doing stairs in like a building, and I was like, what's going on here, right? And didn't even clue in. I'm like, am I that out of shape or what? But then like it dawned on me that, yeah, I guess that's another after effect of having it. So it's a difficult situation, but they're going to have to play, because of the fact that, this is a business at the end of the day. It sounds harsh, but there's sponsorship commitments, there's advertisements. Like the NHL, it was a big hurdle and a big process to even just get this season going, right? And so it's easy for some people to say, let's just, they don't have to play all their games, cancel the Canucks Senators games, and it can be points percentage. But there's ramifications of that. Like, the league has already lost so much money as it is. And so then you're just trying to fit this 56 game in season in. Now, if it wasn't for the Olympics in the summer, there would be a lot more leeway for them to just keep on extending the regular season, right? And I think that presents a problem where they don't want the Stanley Cup to be. Imagine the Stanley Cup final on, and the Olympics are on at the same time. That would not be smart, and it wouldn't be a good look for the league either, right? And so there's so many different things at play, but I think that at the end of the day, the players, they're going to have to play, and then they've called up a lot of guys from Utica, their minor team as well, to fill in some of those spots if some of the players aren't ready. So, and I think they already got their extra delay that the players were asking for. So I'm thinking they're going to play this week.
Harnarayan, you did over 700 games doing play-by-play in Punjabi, but you called the opening game here in English for the start of the 21 season. So what's it been like for you? I mean, what has your journey been like over the last number of years and now switching to this new role?
Yeah, Dave, it's been a thrill of a lifetime, to be honest with you. I grew up wanting to do this from a very young age. I'm a small town Southern Alberta kid, and there wasn't much diversity at all in my town of 10,000 people, Brooks, Alberta, but I grew up loving hockey, and when I was growing up, I was told that this would be impossible because of the fact that there wasn't any diversity on TV or radio during the 80s and the 90s, especially in sports. Like there wasn't any like people of color, there wasn't even women, and so it was a different world back then. And so I was told back then that this would be impossible, and so for me to be able to actually do this now and to be sitting here and with you guys talking hockey, it probably means a lot more to me than the average next person, because of the fact that it was, I kind of had to go above and beyond in terms of the initial years. Hockey Night Punjabi was a blessing. It was how I got my foot in the door. And I went to school for this industry. I worked at TSN, CBC, and then Hockey Night Punjabi began. And that's an incredible 14 seasons now we're into the show. And so I was paying my own flights at the beginning of the show to just be a part of it and to make it successful. And so for me to sit here today, and then now I've switched languages, and it's a fascinating process just within your brain, because obviously I speak English, but I speak Punjabi as well. When you've called hockey games for that long, for that many seasons and 700 plus, your brain has a certain way of talking about it. And so then I've done that switch, right? And so it's been fascinating just within myself to see that process. And then we have a different style. There's some stylistic differences with Hockey Night Punjabi, where we're pretty loose, where we have a lot of fun, but we're pumping the enthusiasm out. And so I've been trying to marry those things together, right? The traditional English style and then the Punjabi style, and putting that together. And some of the things that I do have actually come up here in Winnipeg too. Like one of the things I do, and you may remember from like this Nick Bonino goal call that went viral in 2016 when the Penguins won the cup, or so if there's a big goal like late in the game, let's say it's tied at 2 and a team scores a go-ahead goal late in third period, that's when I'm going to bring out that style. And so I have a goal call that I try to make the last syllable of the name last as long as possible, right? So it could be Kyle Connor, right? And so that's something I do. But I've also found that there's been a learning curve for some of the English viewers. Some of you who've been following along with the story of Hockey Night Punjabi, or maybe you've heard some of our goal calls, you're familiar with it anyways, right? But some who this style, it might be new to them, they're wondering like, well, why is he doing that on? And right. And it ends up being for a certain team or a certain player just because of the situation. And so that's some of the things that like I'm bringing over from that style, but there's been a bit of a learning curve. And I would say for some of I shouldn't use the word learning curve, but it's unique. And so then, just to understand why I'm doing it, when it's all based on the situation. It has to be based on the name too. Like we were talking about Mike Smith, but you can't really make Smith last. I was joking at home one day because my daughter, who's 5, she's like, you've never done that for Mike Smith. And I said, well, that's not the type of name you can do it for, right? And I was like thinking, I've never actually done that for a goalie ever. And she's like, please, Dada, can you do it for a goalie? And so, it's been a thrill. It's been such a great experience to be able to do this.
You'll have the call tonight between the Jets and the Oilers, shortly after 6 p.m. puck drop nationally on CBC Sportsnet across the entire Hockey Night in Canada network. Harnarayan Singh, appreciate your time, appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great broadcast tonight.
My pleasure, guys. Take care. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Harnarayan.
There he goes. Harnarayan Singh joining us on the program. He's going to have a great call tonight. I enjoy listening to his calls of the game, and really,
he's just awesome.
He's the best of Canada personified. Really,
it's an amazing story. I haven't had a chance to read his book, but I recommend if you have a chance to pick it up. But anybody who's been following Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi knows that as Harnarayan mentioned, that's where he started, and it's just been great to see him grow. And he's so talented and such a nice person. So it was awesome to have him on. Obviously, we couldn't have him on back in the day when we were on TSN 1290, but now we can. So that was just great.
We should make that like Voldemort. That shall not be shall not be mentioned. But
no.
Who cares?
Okay, fair enough. Anyways, welcome back.
We're not complaining because this new format.
I know.
I mean, I don't want to say a certain person who's in the top right corner of the chat was advocating for this, but
you're going to say that anyways.
And as he's muted again.
That's okay. As he being muted isn't a problem that I have.
Eddie, you're still muted.
Yeah, no. Again,
I have no problem. I'm usually
muted.
I'm usually on the bottom anyway, so I have no problem.
That's
all right, Drew. Easy.
Just not touching that one. Moving on. This segment brought to you by Boston Pizza. I'm gonna keep it clean. Boston Pizza has the perfect starting lineup tonight with the BP Game Day meal deal. Choose 2 of your favorite gourmet medium pizzas, like the spicy pierogi or the mighty meteor, along with a triple order of Boston's famous wings, plus 2 dipping sauces, all for $54.99. That serves 5 to 6 people. Maybe you got a big family. Certainly that's a good way to spend your night tonight. Available for takeout and delivery only at bostonpizza.com or download the MyBP app. Still to come on the show this Saturday morning, your buddy Dave Jamieson is going to join us, talk about things from the Oilers' perspective. We really haven't touched on the road trip that was for the Winnipeg Jets, and it ended obviously on Thursday with such a positive victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs, that 5-2 margin. For the Jets over the Leafs. They go 4-1 on the road trip, 3-1 on this week for the Jets. I mean, this Jets team just seems to be, and we've seen it all year round. It's the resiliency, and it's the sort of attitude that they've taken all year long. Is nothing has phased them. They haven't had any real highs, and they haven't had any real lows. And I think it's that consistency and the ability to put one bad game to the side and then come back with a good game that has made them as successful as they've been this year. And we really saw that on the road trip. You go to Montreal, you really demoralize Montreal for those 2 games. You have the bit of a stinker on Monday night in Ottawa. You don't have a great game on Wednesday night, but you defeat the Senators, and then you come back on Thursday with an absolute dominant performance against the Leafs. A good road trip that we've said more often than not this year for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, the Jets are a good team. Like at this point in the season, like we've talked about it, like we're at the 3/4 mark of the season. Anybody, who's watched the Jets this year shouldn't have been surprised by the way the Jets played on that road trip. Like you mentioned it, Drew. Those first 2 games against the Canadians, thanks for coming out. Like, the Jets handled them, quite nicely. The game against the Senators, we talked about this on the post-game show. It was just 1 period. And obviously Hellebuck wasn't fantastic in that game. It was a rare bad game for Hellebuck. So the Jets could have easily gone 5-0 on this road trip. And yeah, I agree. Even the second game against the Senators wasn't great. The road trip that just happened was emblematic of the rest of the season. They haven't lost 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. It's a good team. I think it's the best team that this city has had since that 2018 run. I think you guys would agree with that.
Is it better than that 2018 team?
Well, we're gonna have to wait and see if the Jets. I'll say this much: the forward group is better. I will absolutely say that the forward group is better than in 2018. I don't think the defense core is better. There was a lot of depth. You remember that, the last few games, right? Like Toby Enstrom wasn't able to play. I mean, Toby Enstrom was essentially, the Jets' 7th defenseman, right?
Well, so it's a pretty good scratch. That game 5 against the Golden Knights.
That didn't end very well.
No,
it didn't end well. His career in Winnipeg in an ugly manner. Right. I don't think anyone's spoken. I don't think Toby Enstrom has spoken to anybody in Winnipeg, media-wise, certainly since then, because you remember he didn't stick around for.
No, he left.
What's that? He left.
He didn't. He wasn't there for
the Jets. Won't have to protect him in the Seattle expansion draft, so they're not going to.
They won't have to make any trades.
That's but true. The right side guys was Trouba, Bufflin, and Myers, right? Like that was. I mean, that was the envy of the NHL that year. So it's tough to compare that D-core to the D-core now. I'm not saying that they're not good, because I do think the Jets D-core is good now, but I think it's very close, Drew, put it that way. And they're going to have to get excellent goaltending, which why wouldn't we expect them to get excellent goaltending from both Connor Hellebuck and Laurent Brossoit? But they haven't been in this position in a while, right? Like you forget that last year they were scratching and clawing just to remain in the playoff picture. So this is similar to 2018 when they were comfortably in a playoff spot battling with Toronto. Now they were battling with Nashville back then. So I mean, I think they have a good chance here in the playoffs, and we can never look too far ahead. And Dave Jamieson is just joining us now, but I think Dave would agree that there isn't necessarily one team in this North Division that you can call the clear-cut favorite to get to the West Final.
Dave Jamieson from TSN 1260, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave, we'll let you answer Ezzy's question. Nice to see you. We're so used to doing this, of course, on the radio that it's nice to see you on screen. A bit of a change from what we're used to, let's say.
And I'm insanely jealous of Dave's fire burning brightly behind him.
I thought you were going to say my beard, Dave.
I'm not saying this because you're, doing the show from Winnipeg and for people in Winnipeg and beyond. I think a lot of people here are very worried about facing the Winnipeg Jets here in Edmonton. And yes, McDavid, Draisaitl, and you guys, I'm sure, have talked about the things the Oilers have. But that strength down center and Connor Hellebuck in goal should scare a lot of people in facing that Winnipeg team. Yeah, I would agree with what Ezra said about the, no clear cut yet. I mean, to the Leafs, what do they have in goal with Jack Campbell? We know what the Leafs can do offensively. I think it's close enough with those top three that right now I'm just not I'm not so bullish on anybody that I want to go all in yet.
To that point, Dave, I mean, should the Oilers have maybe done more at the trade deadline? Dmitry Kulikov, we know Dmitry Kulikov in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. He's not going to do anything for you offensively. He's going to be a depth defenseman. He's playing, at a little more than $1 million a year. He's a perfectly fine acquisition. But does that change the ceiling for the Edmonton Oilers, given where they currently stand?
It is the epitome, with no disrespect to Mr. Kulikov, a depth move in the truest sense. I mean, 700 and some games in the NHL, you know what you're getting. And I don't think expectation. The reaction on trade deadline day to Ken Holland's move, there wasn't, because I think largely Oiler fans know the restrictions that the Oilers have. Ken Holland is working with one arm tied behind his back, thanks to the Peter Chiarelli era. And so Oiler fans are getting very excited, almost sort of drunkenly so, thinking about all the money the Oilers are going to have going into the offseason and what they can do next year. So I don't think they were going to address their pressing needs. Mike Smith has played very well, and they've got some good and at times great, but not. Smith is the number one from performance from Koskinen, so they're going to need to address goaltending. Okay, at some point, I don't know who that is, but they got to get better there for the short and medium range, and then you've got a top line winger, somebody who can reliably score and work alongside Connor McDavid, because it's just been a kind of a rotating cast. If they're going to break up McDavid and Draisaitl, which it looks like they're going to do for a little bit here, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast in that top six, more than you would like, I think, for a team that's, I don't think the Oilers are great. I think they're good with that, and on occasion can push through to being a great team. They're not there yet.
Dave, I wanted to ask you about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, because he's obviously not he's not on the road trip, and he won't be playing tonight. But reading in the Athletic and Edmonton newspapers, I mean, there's a lot of talk about whether the Oilers are going to re-sign Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And I wanted to ask you about not only Nugent-Hopkins but also Adam Larsson, Tyson Barrie. You mentioned there's going to be a lot of money. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be around $25 million. That's going to become available to Ken Holland. So what do you see happening there? I mean, I know it's tough to predict right now, but do you think that, the money is right now on Nugent-Hopkins and Larsson, and then, potentially Tyson Barrie is the one who leaves in free agency?
Yes, I'll answer succinctly yes. But here's the thing with Nugent-Hopkins, and I'm going off the conversations I have with my listeners and that we get generally on TSN 1260. People like Nuge. I don't know what you would not like about Nuge. He's a good player. He is eminently reliable. You can move him up and down and sort of slot him in. He's the longest serving Oiler. And that's fine on a level. I think people, though, feel a certain kinship in this city to Nuge because he has been here through the worst of the worst. He's been a good soldier, which I know a lot of hockey players are, so that's not terribly unique. But Nuge really does sort of stoically go about the business of playing hockey, and I think people like that in him. People like him and would like him to return. but only at a certain price. There's we love you, but and that's fine. I mean, this is pro sports. We all kind of know how this works. So if they can get Nuge at what I would say would be team friendly money, and that's open for debate too. And then I really like Larson, and I know that there's a constituency out there that says, okay, and he'll never not be the guy they got for Taylor Hall. So. And when he got here, when the trade was made and Peter Chiarelli announced it, he goes, sounding very much like my dad, he's not sexy. Well, yeah, that's true. Adam Larson doesn't move the needle on the sexy. But he is a unique defenseman in the style he plays, the minutes he can eat up. And I still think you need, even in today's NHL, a guy like Adam Larson. But, that's sometimes hard to sell out there in the fandom, but that's not where Ken Holland needs to work. Tyson Barrie is absolutely, you talk about capitalizing on a bet on you deal. That guy has absolutely done it. Now, he's perfectly suited to slot in, play the role of the guy on the back end on the power play and work with McDavid and Draisaitl and others, and has got a great shot, and he gets it through. I don't know if he's an Oiler for life. He's good now. They'd love to have him. But again, they've got other things they've got to acquire here. And maybe, they look at a Tyson Barrie as it was great while it lasted. But we've got to, at some point, they got to give Evan Bouchard. They got to get him in there somewhere. And that's been a kind of a curious sort of subplot to this season, is the use or non-use of Evan Bouchard.
Dave Jamieson is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Your Saturday morning, a little past 11 o'clock. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Dave, Jesse Puljujarvi went back and played in Liga last year and played another 16 games this year while waiting for the NHL to get going. Mm-hmm. What has he been like? Because whenever he's played against the Jets, he's looked very good. But what has his season looked like for the Edmonton Oilers so far?
His story, and there are a few good stories. There always are when the season has gone the way it has for the Oilers. You're going to find these. But I have to admit, I was not confident that Jesse Puljujarvi would figure out how to play hockey in the NHL. Players go back overseas, some return, some do and don't have much success. But he was going at the very front end of his career. He had surgery on both hips to correct a problem that he'd had presumably since either birth or, a young man. He goes away, has some success overseas, and comes back. And I was still thought, okay, I wonder, the measurables are all there, the size, the strength, which he's still trying to figure out, and can skate well, but I never thought that I know this can sometimes sound like a vague term, thought the game well. I never thought he kind of knew what he was supposed to do on the ice in his first. Now in the rebooted version of Jesse Puljujarvi, he's a guy that clearly is far more comfortable out playing NHL hockey. He also has a clearly defined role as I can see it. And he's playing with McDavid. Now let's not understate that. But I think he's going to find his greatest success as a net front presence. Mm-hmm. Go to the net. Be large, which you are, be strong, which you are finding your way, and just kind of be in there. I don't think he's ever going to be a playmaker. He's got a good shot, but he can find a spot here and has found a spot here, quite honestly. And I think it's a really neat sort of, I'd say, redemption, because it wasn't like he, did something that he needs to redeem himself from. He was a young kid who, frankly, was put in a place where he shouldn't have been at the front end of his career. This feels like his rookie season.
Mm-hmm. Dave Jamieson, our guest. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave is with TSN 1260 in Edmonton. And Dave, you mentioned Evan Bouchard, and for our audience that may not remember him, top 10 pick, 10th overall back in 2018. He's played 12 games with the Oilers this season. Why hasn't he been able to be a regular, especially when you look at that Oilers defense and you think that there's, it's not like it's a juggernaut that it should be that difficult to break into that lineup. Is that on Bouchard maybe not being ready for that? Is that on the usage of him? Sort of like, where is he at sort of on the development curve, I guess, especially given the weirdness that is this season?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know where he's on the development curve, and I've asked a number of times on my show, and just I don't get an answer. Is what is the plan? And can the Oilers, not that the Oilers owe me anything or really the fans anything in terms of how they develop a player. That's their job, but. As you say, 12 games he's been in some cases he's looked pretty good. He had one really tough game where he was playing out of position because they just had to deploy him on his strong side. And it was a tough game. He and Ethan Bear just struggled, and Bear has had a kind of a middling season. I think his game is starting to return, but he was out for some time. And Bouchard, I think you're right about the Oiler blue line. Good, not great, but they've been largely healthy. I mean, Klefbom, but he's never been here this year. And so he hasn't been, Bouchard I'm talking about, has not been, in the time he's been in, has not been so good where they said, oh, we can't take him out. Like this is, and they're really going the slow roll route with Evan Bouchard. I mean, that's painfully obvious. Now, a lot of people have said, like, why is he not in Bakersfield? Like, just play. Like, he's here, and I guess there's some benefit in skating with the big team and being around all of that and being exposed to the coaching of Tippett and the others. I know this is a surprise. They know more about hockey than I do. So, but it just, as an outsider, it just
I refuse to believe that.
Yeah. It just seems curious because you've got someone who just feels like they're right on the cusp based on the limited amount we've seen. But this is not a franchise that has been terribly good at developing defensemen. And Paul Coffey doesn't count. Over the years, Edmonton's a bit of a Bermuda Triangle when it comes to young defensemen. We've run more people out of town here on the back end than I think it's kind of embarrassing, frankly. The organization hasn't done a better job. So now they've got a chance to do it right. And I think that might be as much as anything guiding Bouchard's lack of playing time. I know that sounds kind of strange.
Yeah, well, we could relate to that, Dave, with Ville Heinola, and he just got into his second NHL game. I think there's some parallels there, right, between Heinola and Bouchard. I wanted to ask you about Dylan Holloway because that news just came out yesterday, and I thought it was funny that some people were wondering if Dylan Holloway signed his contract because Cole Caulfield had recently signed his contract with Montreal, thinking that might have been related somehow. But I wanted to ask you, specifically about Holloway and Philip Broberg, and we could throw Evan Bouchard in there as well. Like, how excited are Oilers fans about these prospects? Because it's kind of a different, situation that the Oilers organization is in, as opposed to, all these first overall picks going right into the lineup. Now you've got these prospects that, can take a little bit more time to develop. And before you, answer on Holloway, did you think, not burning that ELC was a big part of that? Because I think there were probably some Oilers fans who thought, after University of Wisconsin was done, that Holloway might be able to come into the lineup. But he has, if I'm not mistaken, he just underwent thumb surgery, and he might play in the AHL, but he won't. His NHL contract won't kick in until next year.
Yeah. And to your point about Oiler fans, yes. I mean, Oiler fan is and I love them dearly, is kind of a twitchy bunch. I mean, they want it now, and they want it right now on their terms. And so, yeah, they would have put Holloway in the lineup tonight if they could, but that's not smart. Again, defer to the hockey people most times, not all, but Holloway, he gets people excited for, obviously, the idea of, and I know in this day and age the power forward thing is kind of vague and not really sure if it still applies, but he's got a lot of those kind of qualities that get people excited, and I know it's a ways off, but could you project him playing, in top six fairly soon? I don't know. I'm always, players who have great college careers, and there were a lot of them. It's not that I'm skeptical. Obviously, the quality of play is outstanding there, but I until I see it, I remain a little bit skeptical until somebody's been able to put in the time, both in the AHL and then obviously get the right opportunity to slide in the National Hockey League. But this is all such new terrain for Oilers and their fans. God, they don't have to rush people in. I mean, I guess the good thing is, you'd like another Connor McDavid, but if you're any good, you won't be in the draft lottery. And that's where Ken Holland talked about the day he got hired is we want to be a playoff team every year. That should be the minimum expectation. Kind of like they were in Detroit, and I understand a different era, but that's the baseline from which we work. And then it's okay, one round, and hockey is terribly unpredictable and very competitive. So, but that's the baseline to work from. Whereas, for 10, 11 years, the Oilers are clinging, hanging on or barely hanging on to their season. So it's very different. Fans feel like the team is on the cusp, and that's why going to the trade deadline, everybody wants a Taylor Hall deal or whatever. Feeling that this is a team they don't want to waste McDavid and Draisaitl's best years. That's the thing you hear more than anything else around this Oiler team. We got to win it for Connor and Leon. We got to win it now.
And Dave, to that idea, I mean, although Alex Ovechkin would say he didn't, when did he win, in his 13th year or something like that? So I think you don't have to necessarily worry about winning it in your first 5. Obviously ideal, but it can still happen for teams. To that idea of the fan bases everywhere, and we know the Edmonton fan base is passionate fan bases you're going to find in the NHL. There's just no question about it. But from the brain trust perspective, are they kind of where they expected this team to be? Is this team kind of doing what it is that they were anticipating? And do they have a greater expectation? Like, do they expect this team to be a team? I know you said it's very hard to put anything on this year because it's so unusual, but because what is the kind of the vision of this team? Because of the brain trust, because oftentimes, like I said, it might not necessarily mesh with what the fans want, because every fan base wants their team to win right now.
Yes. Well, Oiler fan base feels like it's owed success. And I get that. I mean, and given how long the Oilers have been bad, with the exception of that 16-17, call it a mini run. So there's a lot of pent up anger, anxiety, however you want to phrase it. I believe that this hockey operations department led by Ken Holland, Dave Tippett, it has the most cohesive vision for this franchise to move forward. I mean, there's a reason Ken Holland is here and not Peter Chiarelli. There's a reason Dave Tippett, and I thought Todd McClellan was a very good coach, but they're here because of all of the things that have not happened previously, where the Oilers would, obviously get the golden ticket and think that in and of itself was enough to pull them out of the sewer. And as we've learned, look around the league, look at the team you guys see a lot. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said about how the Winnipeg Jets, who've been dealt some difficult, circumstances, with Byfuglien and the changes to the back end and stuff. I think that's an organization that has really kind of had to rejig on the fly and do it intelligently. You've got a brilliant goaltender, so that's a great place to start. I think everyone would agree. That's not something the Oilers have. They're going to have to get there. Now, you don't find Connor Hellebucks on the street. And so what they're going to do next in goal, and again, it has to be noted, Mike Smith has been really, really good, but he's 39, and you can't fool the birth certificate. So they're going to have to get that part and that position figured out. I don't think it's coming from within with Stuart Skinner or anybody else they have in the system, but and then there's some other deficiencies. I think the bottom two lines are they're kind of placeholders. I mean, there's a few players that you go, yes, they can be part of the solution going forward. But to your sort of broader question, Dave, I think the Ken Holland, they feel that this team is where it deserves to be, okay, and likely where it should be in this bizarre season that they're in. But I think that they I don't think anybody's whispering cup here in Edmonton. But again, back to what he said on opening day or when he was hired, playoffs the minimum. We'll see where it goes from there.
Well, that was going to be my last question for you, Dave. I mean, you look at the Leafs and you can see what their ceiling is, and you can see, that the sky is the proverbial limit, and you see the Jets and the way they're built right now, and it wouldn't surprise anybody if they escaped from the North Division and even went further than that, and even the Habs with their forward depth and their back end, and Carey Price going on a run certainly wouldn't be shocking to anybody. I look at the Oilers team, and unless to quote Blake Wheeler, unless McDavid goes absolutely super freak for a couple series in a row, it's hard for me to envision them being beyond a one series victory team. Maybe if you squint hard enough, 2 series, but it seems like that would be really pushing it, and that just seems to me like a. I don't know what the path forward beyond that is for years to come, that they're not just that 1 round, 2 round McDavid super freak team.
Yeah, and Blake Wheeler knows whereof he speaks. Yes, Connor McDavid can take over. He can take over games. We've seen that. It's really hard to take over entire series. I mean, we've seen it with goaltenders, and yes, there's, through hockey history, you get a guy that goes on a kind of a ridiculous run, but it's really hard to dominate, game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it's going to be, as good as McDavid is. But here's the rub. McDavid, this is a team that if it's not McDavid and it's not Draisaitl on any given night, you ask yourself, okay, who's next? Who is going to be the guy that could take over a game offensively? Or they're just not configured to have. They'll have individual success, but the collective, is. I'm with you. I think they're around. And a team that could maybe get a couple of rounds out of this, but they're just not quite there in terms of, and again, we talk about McDavid and Draisaitl, they're going to have Mike Smith steal a series, and I say Mike Smith, I know that they try to do the fairly democratic use of the goaltenders here, but Mike Smith's the guy. I mean, he'd have to, and that's asking, frankly, a fair bit of a guy his age, and he's extremely well conditioned and is cheating father time and has done a really great job this year. But I'm with you, Drew. They're get around. If it's 2, then you know what? That's been a hell of a run. Then hit the off season and open up that wallet and let's go, Kenny.
Dave Jamieson covers the Edmonton Oilers for TSN 1260 in Edmonton. He's a good friend of our show, both pre-times and post-times, and we always love having Dave on with us. Good to see you.
Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, but it's nice to see you in as close as in person as we're going to get right now. Be well, Dave. Be healthy.
Take care, guys.
Take care. There he goes, Dave Jamieson, joining us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Let's pay some bills. When we come back, talk more about the Jets, tonight's contest against the Oilers. You're listening, you're watching, you're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Under the wire again, Mr. Minuk, just sliding into your chair like it's no big deal. Welcome back to the.
That was just a vision of DM sliding into his DMs, you know.
That's a lot of DMs right there. There's I guess 2 DMs on this show. Then there's only one EG, but there's 2 DMs.
More importantly, though, before we get going, there's a lot of people still in the chat. But you know what? There aren't a lot of likes. Well, there are actually a lot of likes, but we want more likes. We're greedy for likes.
It's all we ask of you.
Yeah, we are very needy.
We are.
I said greedy. I said greedy, but you know what? Needy is as well. You know, yeah. Subscribe, like, do it all. We want it all. Ring that bell, and remember, we're back in like 7 or 8 hours. So
that's true. It's exactly right.
It'll help give you a reminder of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
That's right. Subscribe to everything, to our YouTube channel, and get alerted each and every time we go live. And as a reminder, we go live after every Winnipeg Jets game. So that'll be tonight, right around probably the 8:30, 8:40 mark, somewhere in there when the final buzzer comes. You just go straight over to our YouTube page and or our Twitter feed or any of our social media platforms.
Thank you, NHL, once again for moving that start time, because we went through all of those 9 o'clock start times when the Jets were on the West Coast, right, in Alberta and BC. So thank you. For changing that to a 6 o'clock start so I can be in bed at my normally scheduled bedtime.
That's right. So this was supposed to be the last 9 o'clock game on the season. Obviously, we know that's the regular wayside. The regular season, the playoffs. I shudder to even think what the schedule is going to look like come playoff time.
But the Oilers start at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we can wait a month. We'll find out about that coming up soon. And of course, I guess there's a couple more 8 o'clock games, if I'm not mistaken, when the Jets face the Oilers at home after the Leafs come next week. They have those 2 games in a row against the Oilers at home. For whatever reason, I think that's on a Monday and a Wednesday. Those are 8 o'clock starts. And then I believe there's an 8:30 start in Calgary, if I'm not mistaken. The Jets go to that last road trip. They go to Ottawa, and then they go to Calgary from Ottawa. And I think that Calgary game
that makes a lot of sense.
I don't understand why. Yeah, it didn't make any sense at all.
That seems like someone who doesn't understand a map of Canada.
They're not looking that well at the geography of things in that sense. But in any event, we know that the Jets, the bulk of their road games are over with. They succeeded on that 17 of 22 on the road that ended up on Thursday in Toronto with the victory. Now they're at home for 5 this week. They got the Oilers for 1, then they got the Leafs for 2, and then the Oilers again for a final 2 before they head out, I believe, on that final road trip of the season. Some final thoughts from you guys. Reminder, like I said, 8:30 tonight with the post-game show, give or take a couple minutes after the Jets and the Oilers. So some final thoughts about what you're watching for in tonight's Oilers-Jets game. You're on mute.
Well, you could have gone to Dave first and foremost. I always, put it on mute.
I didn't say your name.
I'm a heavy breather, so I try not to, I don't want everybody to hear all my heavy breathing, or if I happen to release a burp or something like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing how the Oilers do after having 4 days between games, 4 or 5 days, I forget. But they've been off for a little bit here, and I'm interested to see how Logan Stanley does back in the lineup, because we know that Ville Heinola is coming out for tonight's game. I'm only expecting, similar play from Stanley, but I'm more so just looking to see, as we talked about before, Drew, if the Jets can put together 60 minutes, 3 periods of a solid game like they did last game versus Toronto versus Edmonton, because you made a really good point earlier. This Oilers team, record-wise and, record aside, this Oilers team has caused the Jets a lot of problems. So, I think even though this isn't a game that's going to have playoff implications, it'll have seeding implications. But, I want to see, a solid 3-period game, not 1, not 2 periods. I think, the Jets want to play this Oilers team and take advantage of the fact that, you don't have any Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in the lineup right now. But, I think knowing that there's a good chance these two teams are going to play, Dave, I think, the Jets want to, put out a good effort and obviously, hopefully get the clean 2 points.
Yeah, and I think the point you're making, Ezzy, is a good one. I think that's what you're looking for from a Jets perspective. I think we're probably going to see a bit of a sloppy first period. That's just my own personal take. Is that
you're saying Poppy's going to be a little sloppy?
Poppy's going to be a little bit sloppy in that first. And it's funny. Like I had said to Drew the last time, I said I'm shocked you weren't advocating for the 9 to the flex, because we don't really see the NHL generally adjust very much like they do in the NFL, where they'll make adjustments to the schedule quickly. Well, the NHL did it, and I don't think it throws things off terribly, because it's not as if the Jets, they had to like really think about it. It just happened yesterday. But I think it'll be interesting to see, maybe have a little bit more of a normal routine versus like a 9 o'clock start when you still have your morning skate at the same time, but you have to kind of get going not till 9. So especially here in Winnipeg, that's a bit of unusual. So maybe make it a little bit cleaner of a game. Just another report from head coach Paul Maurice, who spoke to the media a little while ago. We'll have that on illegalcurve.com, which you can read in the pregame report. He said that Blake Wheeler's been given a clean bill of health, but he wants to get him, as we talked about, he wants to get him into contact. So that's just something for folks to know, is that Blake Wheeler has had a clean bill of health, is ready to go. But of course, Paul Maurice is making the prudent and smart decision, which is to give him the night off, allow him to have practice, allow him to get some bump and grind in, and then he can get back and ready to go when the Jets and Oilers get going. Jets and Leafs, get going next Thursday. So, again, I'm just looking from a Jets team that you don't need it. It's not going to be critical if you lose the game. It doesn't cause you to your season to go into a tailspin. But I think that the Oilers have been kind of that boogeyman for you so far this season, and I think you're kind of wanting to put that out of your minds at least a little bit. That back-to-back against Edmonton to end the homestand, this 5-game homestand, which was a 6-game homestand. I think that's probably more important to see how they do in a 2-game set versus a one-off, especially a one-off, like I said, in this sort of manner. But again, all these games are important. You can't just throw them away and say, okay, it doesn't really make a difference if you lose it, right? It's always easy to say that if you lose. So I think you're looking for just to Ezzy's point, a complete effort from the Winnipeg Jets.
Dave, the boogeyman's not real. I was just explaining this to my daughter. It's not real. You have nothing to worry about.
Oh, my parents never taught me that. So as far as I know, it's still real.
Okay. On that note, I can't follow up with anything.
And he actually looks a lot like Drew in my mind, for the record.
The boogeyman looks like me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've been called worse. I gotta say, I've been called worse by better. But I
don't know about by better, but you've definitely been called worse.
Well, now I'm going to get the Minuk troop after me, and then I'll best her off.
Don't force me to put my people.
Nobody's better than Ezra, Drew.
All right. Show's over.
On that note, this final segment was brought to you by Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, officially declared the funniest place in Winnipeg by Illegal Curve Hockey. For over 30 years, Rumors has been bringing Winnipeg the best in stand-up comedy. To purchase tickets or for a list of performers and showtimes, visit rumorscomedyclub.com. Rumors planning on reopening with all COVID protocols followed, of course. I believe it is almost 1 month from now, if I'm not mistaken, May the 14th. The Rumors Roast Off, the comedy Roast Off, tickets available right now at rumorscomedyclub.com. So be sure to check that out. Also, on that note, want to give a big thank you to our other sponsors, Linden Market Dental Center, Bernstein's Deli, Zappia Group Realty, and Boston Pizza. Support these fine local businesses because they support Illegal Curve Hockey. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us in the chat this morning. It's been great to see so many of you. Old names and new names. So good to see all of you. Reminder, we'll be back in about 9 hours time, right around 8:30, 8:40 tonight for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Join us then For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday morning, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.